last truly scared?
Feel it all the time.
So you're sleeping at night and then...
I heard a whole heap of noises that in my sleepy state, I thought were foxes barking. Do foxes bark? Do we have foxes here? The foxes barking were a bunch of lads, 38 of them counted.
3 versus 38.
All armed, yep. Heavily armed. One of the team members basically signaled that they were taking us to make a bad video of us. Videos of decapitation were one of those things that they'd exchange between warring parties to state commitment to what the mission is.
Were you at peace with death that day?
I don't think you can really be at peace with death at any point, can you? Dragged into the minefields that we thought were there to protect us. There was a couple of inshallah moments, which is like, if it goes, it goes. The last man, who was the leader of the group, pulled out a camera and said, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. What I imagined there for a second was, that's it. They're going to do that final act in front of all eyes. They've got the camera and they're going to...
That must be the most frightening thing that's ever happened in your life though, right?
We were held hostage and then released. He said, did you follow drill?
Oh, good, you're here. Come on. This is the centre of performance. Whenever there's a top performance in New Zealand, it all comes from here. That's Lisa Carrington. She's been doing that for days. That's the boy who got the hole in one in Tokyo. Oh, he did it again. Hey, Finn, how's the performance going?
Top tier.
Nice. This is our Generate room. In here, you'll find our top performers helping Kiwis maximise their KiwiSaver investments. Get in here, Finn. Maximise.
Right,
Generate. Putting performance first.
Dr. B, Dr. Alia Bojilova, welcome to my podcast.
Well, thank you, kind sir. Can I just keep calling you Professor D from now on?
Yeah. Well, you sent me a text this morning. I messaged you asking you what coffee you wanted, and you text back calling me Professor D, and I was like, I could get used to this.
Do you love it? Do you love it?
I did love it. It played to my ego.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So it's so wonderful to have you here on the podcast. You and I have only met once before. That was briefly at a mutual friend of ours, James Lachlan. He had this high-performance workshop thing in Christchurch, and I was a speaker that day, so was Samuel Whitelock, the famous All Black, and yourself. And I was suffering severe imposter syndrome, and rightfully so. I had no right being there amongst yourself and Samuel. It was crazy. I found your session so inspiring.
Did you?
Yeah,
honestly,
I really did.
That means the world. See, this is the trouble of you being popular, is that you don't realize I've spent so much of my youth watching you, particularly because you interviewed my long-suffering husband, you see. So, yeah, that's cool. But no, it was an amazing privilege to be in the same space as you and ponder on some wicked questions. It was awesome.
Yeah, one thing which I wrote this on my hand at the time, and then I forgot, when I got to the airport, I forgot what it was, but it was something to do with a tool for having difficult conversations called the Connect 5.
Connect 5.
Was that a
yes.
Was that a thing?
That is a thing. That is a tool. We love this tool. It's a basic tool we started playing with some time back, we being the team that I work with. And effectively, it's an opportunity to shift perspective on something that you might have accepted as a given. All of us have a plethora of triggers and things that affect us on a daily basis. And our beautiful minds grow attached to that stuff. The story we tell ourselves around just why we should continue to be miserable. Connect 5 is a really basic tool, one of many, that we use to help shift minds and at least tempt us into the possibility that there is a different way to view a situation you consider fixed. I mean, I can think of million situations, but one I refuse to change are some of the triggers I experience at home. So it's just one of those things. It's a cool little tool. Good on you for remembering it.
Yeah, this is going to be... well, for anyone that is not familiar with it, like how would you describe it? How can people that are listening to this implement it into their everyday life?
We might have to share it with everyone afterwards.
Okay.
But effectively, I mean, if you imagine yourself, the vast majority of us, consciously or otherwise, are traversing our lives and our days, feeling as if we might encounter another wet Wednesday morning. It's that repeated negative narrative we tell ourselves about our lives. Because we tend to live relatively predictable lives on a day-to-day basis, we get to encounter the same triggers often, right? And so you notice something that has become a familiar kind of niggle, a trigger. Your job is to acknowledge and recognize how your body thinks, feels, and acts when they encounter it, the repeated narrative that you have given yourself, and then to tempt yourself to start with the end in mind. So if this thing was a no factor, or if it was indeed something that gave you an opportunity to engage with your day with sense of joviality, lightness, joyfulness, happiness, excitement, what would it look like? And as a consequence, how do you need to think, feel, and act? Now, it sounds like a very robotic and far too difficult of an exercise to conduct, but it's not. Because the more you tempt your mind into reconsidering your pattern of thinking, feeling, and action, the more likely you become to get tempted into these spaces of in-between, as I like to call them. At the very least, if you're not prepared to go from the dark side of the continuum, which is I'm just a grumpy bear, to a mega energized individual, at the very least what you can do is practice creating kind of resilient neutrality, which is watch this thing, observe it, study it without allowing yourself to react. You can respond if you want to, but you don't have to react. And even that is a big deal. You know, I spend so much of my time as a psychologist in the stories that people weave about stuff, about themselves, about the world. And oftentimes there are so many, our narratives look complete because we keep packing in all sorts of confirmation biases into the lines. But they seldom are. And it's the hardest thing to do, right? How cool is that? You can change the story that you tell yourself on a daily. Trouble is that we are really attached to it. There's this big, screaming, vulnerable ego that all of us have, under layers and layers of protection. So, yeah.
This is going to be an amazing conversation. I'm so excited. I've put so much thought into where to start and how to structure it and where to go because there's just so many facets to your story. Reality TV star being one of them.
Yeah, I know.
But that feels like the most trivial part of the of your story.
Yeah.
That's crazy. The first thing I wanted to know is. Your work these days, you work with elite athletes, CEOs, creatives, all these different things. What do all these people have in common when they're struggling?
The humans. The humans that are experiencing a situation or conditions they consider to be either intolerable or something that pushes them way past the point of flexibility. Now, some of these individuals, teams, and organizations find themselves in these places by their own volition. They seek to find what we call the spinning edge of possibilities. I work with a lot of entrepreneurial entities and a lot of individuals who either haven't realized that there is a predictable cadence of life to follow or have decided to go completely anti-establishment and do something exceptional as a consequence, the best by kind of a beer you want to work with. But inevitably, you kind of come to this place where you're like, you're on the edge of something, you don't know what to do with the next step, but you kind of have to take it. So my job is to help build the confidence and self-efficacy of just what's possible. And sometimes it basically means that we have to summon a whole heap of minds around a wicked issue and take a very pragmatic, practical, almost dull-like approach. Sometimes it just basically means that we build it as we fly. Well, actually, always means we build it as we fly because I play in spaces where the script is seldom in existence. So we create it as we go. And that's the beauty, right? You seldom have an opportunity to do the most pragmatic in the same breath as focusing on stuff we consider fluffy, but it's not purpose, mission, vision, that kind of stuff. And reorient minds and extend possibilities within their own perception of just how much better they can be. Yesterday, I was with a collection of leaders in sports, in New Zealand sports. The same stuff applies to them as it does in my conversation this morning with leaders in venture, as it does in a not-for-profit space. And you said, reality TV star, when I left the military, my favorite mentor said to me, don't you get stuck in a suit. And I spent yonks. He probably just said it as a throwing comment. But I spent ages in a typical fashion, laboring over this statement. And I made it my purpose to ensure that my craft is practiced in every context. And then I show up and prepare to be surprised and shocked by how different humans are. They're not. Cross-culturally, cross-contextually, we have the same needs, Yeah.
With what you're doing now, you mentioned before your long-suffering husband, Jamie Pinnell, Serviceman Jay. He had a great book out. I've had him on the podcast. So he's former SAS, you're former SAS psychologist.
Yeah.
Does life lack excitement now?
There were times, only of recent, it's been 5 years since Jamie stepped out as a full-time officer, and probably about 10, so I'm still reservist. But it's probably taken us the first couple of years to stop pretending that we are good at normal life. You know what I mean? Like we took a hot second to kind of go, what is this thing? And then you feel the level of misery and kind of you're a bit stuck in the mud and you don't know what to do with it. And you don't entirely know how to have conversation with epic normal humans. And it's not in any way a feeling of being better, but it's definitely a feeling of being ill-equipped for normal life. Like, how do you roll with the mundane? That was the hardest thing. Now we are realizing we never had to pretend. We could still chase our own edge and do what spins our wheels. But I don't know why we decided we have to follow someone else's script for a while. The most miserable stage of life. You know?
It is so refreshing to hear you say that. Because I did wonder about that. And I even wonder, like, with the sort of conversations and the sort of, like, I suppose, fires that you're putting out these days, if you're like, deep down, for fuck's sake, this is trivial.
Yeah.
Pull your head in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there was a stage where I thought I'm going to become a good civilian citizen and just find myself a life, a job. When I stepped out of defense, I found that to be frightening. Because the kind of issues we are dabbling in aren't always the most important, you know. Like, so with all the humility attached to this statement, I love where I am now, where I can bounce in and out of places where nothing is trivial. Even the trivial, when you double click on it, has profound risk, depth, opportunity in it, and you have to respect it. But you know, the other thing that I've noticed is that there is no average human. Like, for a hot second, you can imagine that, you know, the daily life that we observe out there is something that is normal and predictable. It's not. Everyone has their own epicness. And, you know, all it takes is a couple of questions and you're right there going, you're so amazing. You know? Yeah.
When were you last truly scared? And is fear for you these days something different to what it was potentially like 10 years ago?
You please don't think that this is like, I try not to have too many quotes that I use, but one of the quotes that appears to have shaped much of what I do is fear is just an indication that something matters. It doesn't mean you don't have it physiologically, but the way in which you habituate yourself into reacting to it makes a world of a difference. So I feel it all the time because I don't tinker in the spaces that are predictable or safe. That's just the nature of my work and life at the moment. I fear it all the time, but I use it to help sharpen my focus on what my mind is noticing matters most. And then it gets exciting. Then you can play, you know?
Different sort of fear, though, eh? Different sort of fear. Like, it's not the fear you have these days is not a matter of life and death, whereas once it was.
Yeah. But then again, apparently there isn't a different, you know, you can imagine that it can feel very different to have life and death fear. But a lot of the fear that I observe and experience these days is almost nastier and more trickier to deal with than life and death decisions in the moment. Because you have too many options. Do you know what I mean? In a life and death situation, your options are typically limited. And so if you give yourself a chance, you have relatively easy decisions to make. You know, you don't want to play dead when someone tells you you're about to be made dead. You know, if your options are reduced by a version of intensity. But if you are kind of in a blurry and a daily and fear is about whether you're going to encounter your grumpy boss down a corridor and whether they're going to make your tummy feel uneasy because they're just a muppet, you know, like that's a different kind of fear that you can't react as your body wants it. You know? You can't play dead with your boss.
Yeah.
Well, you can.
But he'll think you're weird.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be great. I thought what we'd do is, by the way, already, like we've been going 12 minutes, there's lots of little helpful takeaways that I think anyone can use to make their own lives better. So I thought before we get into your personal story, we'll start with the resilience stuff and some lessons that everyone can use. Because you wrote the book, The Resilience Toolkit.
I did.
So when you think about the most resilient person or people you've ever met, who are they and what made them resilient?
I mean, you'd expect with the rock stars I've met over the last 2 decades that I'd count out a whole heap of names.
Rock stars as in SAS guys.
SAS guys, but also civilians, exceptional people who appear to, you know, we talked about it earlier, that spinning edge of possibilities, people who are prepared and willing to challenge themselves, typically for the achievement of something greater than themselves, for a benefit that spans beyond oftentimes their lifetime. So yes, there are those rock stars. Some of them are unnameable. Some of them are easily recognizable. But I think if we are to boil it all down, the most resilient person I've ever met was my grandmother. And she's the book of life goddess that I kind of ascribe to now, later on in life, realizing that a lot of the principles we are trying to learn are things that her generation and herself lived consciously through, because this is the cadence of survival and thriving, not just making it through another day, but also having a clear sense of purpose that no one can take away from you, no matter your circumstances. But, see, one of the things that I quite love is if we get ourselves out of the bubble that most of us live in, you get to observe that these superhumans exist everywhere. There's countless places in the world these days that continues to experience acuity, and you get to observe people who can live with sense of purpose, with capacity for contribution, with eye span and attention span that far surpasses their lifetime, and choose how they show up. That's extremely difficult if you are under extreme pressure, or if you are in a period of time when you have been put under kind of tolerable pressure, but for a prolonged period of time, and you turn into a bit of a prickled human. You know what I mean? So my Nana is the biggest rock star of them all.
What made her so resilient?
World wars, conflicts, her own upbringing, and finding necessity, absolutely. But to do that with grace, you know what I mean?
Are you? Is it in your DNA? Do you think people are born resilient, or can anyone? Is it like a muscle that anyone can grow it and train it?
I'm convinced that this is a muscle that everyone has to begin with. It's just that different conditions, different choices that we make along the way, either atrophies it or strengthen it.
Yeah.
And so our job is to build that thing, because we have this weird idea that it's about grittiness and absorption and handling more pain. It's none of that stuff. It's your ability to pause, ask awesome questions, even if it feels like time has been pressurized into just quick switch decisions. It's gold. It's awesome. It's the unlock to human potential.
Yeah, anyone that enjoys this conversation today, I'd urge them to look up your book, The Resilience Toolkit, and buy a copy from Mighty Ape or somewhere. But one of the key things in it is the ABCD.
Yeah.
Awareness, belonging, curiosity, drive. What does that mean?
I mean, the weirdest thing about this ABCD thing, I want to hero up my dear friend Simon Curran, who before this became ABCD, it was a PhD publication, right? My PhD research was basically all about the ABCD, and it was in typical PhD fashion, clunky, loaded in terminology that no one could relate to. So Simon was able to flip it and turn it into something he calls Sesame Street simple. Lucky for science, it relates to what the science was saying. But effectively what it shows us is the cadence of resilience. And I keep saying the word cadence, but there is a pace to it. There is a rhythm to it, right? You have to start with awareness, self-awareness, interpersonal awareness, situational awareness. Then the next step is belonging. And belonging is critical for resilience because it allows you to see yourself where your feet are in your fullness of your potential. And it can mean all sorts of different things to different people. It's not just attachment to your familial origin or values necessarily. It's also understanding that all of these things can grow and evolve so that you can be better, contribute better, function more meaningfully. The next one is my favorite, my kind of cue to survival, curiosity. And that means the world, just in terms of capacity to pivot. You can't be freaked out and depleted and curious at the same time. So you kind of have to choose when to be what with that stuff. And the final one is drive. And normally when we're thinking of resilience as a thing that pushes you past a challenge, we are thinking drive, but purpose precedes drive. Now, all of that stuff, the ABCD, came out of a big chunk of research I did when I got sent back to the SAS and the counter-terrorist tactics group. So I spent a lot of time asking them what resilience is made of. And then the same principles that these exceptional humans articulated were already in existence, just not combined, cross-culturally, cross-contextually, and hence the ABCD is something that very much belongs to peak performers the world over. And I get to see all the time, that's the frustrating thing. It's been a decade, and I still see exactly the same presentation. Maybe I'm biased, but I don't know. I get to see it all the time, you skip the cue. A has to be there. You have to have awareness before you start trying to build a big performing entity. You have to understand yourself and those around you well. you know?
That's so cool. That is so helpful. So you said C, curiosity is your favourite.
Yeah.
What's your least favourite, or the one that you struggle with the most?
Well, perhaps belonging. Belonging because it's a kind of a amorphous thing, you know? And so in order for you to crystallize it and to make it a functional thing as opposed to a superficial idea and a fluffy idea, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of awareness. It takes, like, it's weird to say it as a psychologist. I'm not a massive fan of egocentric build of anything, you know? Like, belonging has to be built in relation to your interactions with the world. You can't just develop your sense of values and identity in isolation. You can't do it in a bubble. So it takes a bit of work. It takes a bit of testing. You don't do it in a cave. It means that you have to understand what your potential is and then understand how it is that what is the stance you have to assume in order to springboard to better, you know? So it's a kind of squishy, morphy thing.
And you use the term in your book, The Resilience Toolkit, bouncing forward versus bouncing back.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
You know how we have resilience being typically defined as the bouncing back following an untoward event.
Yeah, you bounce back. It's what people say. Yeah.
I hate it. It's like, what if the thing that you're trying to bounce back to is no longer there? You know what I mean? So like, what we are missing in this understanding of resilience is that most of the time when people encounter significant setback, significant change in their lives, or something that signals to them that they should take a different approach, the whole idea of bouncing back reverts them to what they used to be without any lessons learned gained. And that's just not cool. You know, the purpose of life is to grow, to evolve, to challenge yourself, to see yourself in some way richer for your experiences, good, bad, otherwise nobody cares. They're there, right? So your job is to better understand them. When I was starting to get particularly frustrated with this bouncing back situation is, I think, like examples like Christchurch earthquake, you know, like it's missing a whole bunch of opportunities to learn if you keep simplifying it to that. You know?
With I'm probably projecting here, but how do you have the compassion and empathy to not roll your eyes at some people's version of adversity? Like when you compare it to what your nana went through or the stuff that you've been through, like are there times where you're like, oh, just for crying out loud, get over yourself?
Okay, so in a spirit of transparency, yes, there are, but they're not the times you assume, right? And so, like, for example, you know how when you're lulling around, the times when I roll my eyes proudly and visibly is when we are like stuck in a gossip. And it's like, I get to hear it all the time. And then he said, and then she said, and then I said. So anything that signals avoidance and unwillingness to step into that challenge makes my eyes roll involuntarily, because what's missing in that is, like, you're missing the opportunity. You're missing the opportunity to test yourself. But this is also normal human behavior. Now, most of what we perceive as adversity isn't in itself adversity. It's, again, a sense of readiness that we have, sense of confidence that we have, understanding or assumption about what resources we currently have to deal with what's in front of us. So we can never underestimate what someone perceives as challenging.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like is when we get ourselves lost in a white noise. Because one thing that my life affords me is the opportunity to have a peek in all sorts of different environments. And all I want to say to us all is, like, you know what, there's so much epicness to be experienced. It's not about testing yourself all the time. It's just about having fun. Like, you know what I mean? Stop gossiping. Have fun. It's really that's the only time. Yeah.
Yeah. Where does that come from? Is that sort of like gratitude or that different perspective that you've got, that glass half full thing?
Every place I've been to, like, I mean, I think my upbringing was very much tilted in that way. I grew up in post-communist Bulgaria, and if you wanted to be like, and he said, and she said, and like, blah, 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 through your day, you could totally do it. Like, you had virtually every reason to do it. You know, I grew up at a time when we had, I don't know if you've shared this with you before, but you know when we had the toilet paper crisis here during COVID?
Yeah.
And I felt like epically prepared, because I remembered how during my upbringing we had electricity crisis, toilet paper was a real issue for a period of time. And the only reason why this is an odd fact is right next to our apartment building in Sofia was the toilet paper factory, where half of my family was working. You know what I mean? So you had this kind of juxtaposition of experiences. But the reason why I mention it is, it teaches you these kinds of environments that you have abundant choices about how you feel about what's around you, not in some way fluffy, but in some way practiced. Every single day you get an opportunity to get fully overwhelmed by the minor drama and the white noise and the bullshit of it all. Or you have a choice to go, sweet, I'm here, watch me roar, let me just focus on something that's meaningful. And when you do that, you notice something epic that you might have otherwise fully missed because you were just like bobbing about. That's what I'm talking about,
Yeah. You're a mum.
Yes.
Jamie and yourself have got a son who's 10, 11?
Yeah, he's about to turn 11.
Yeah. So question for parents, I don't know, there seems to be a thing now to micromanage your kids' lives. But I suppose it's a balancing act because you want your kids to be resilient, but you don't want them to experience anything that's going to force them to need to be resilient. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you, what do you say to parents of kids? And how are you raising your son to be a resilient man?
We have one rule, and that's the hardest thing for Jamie and I to adhere to. Hopefully he's listening and hopefully he's sticking by it, but it's getting out of Alex's way. So our son is called Alex, and he, what Jamie and I used to, or what we expect him to want to do and handle could be entirely different for his own script, right? And so getting out of his way for us means letting him test himself, letting him experiment, experience, letting him sense, feel, hear, taste the feeling of the challenges that he chooses to set for himself, not our own script of life, So, that's the most important rule. Get out of his way more often.
Have you ever met anyone that you believed after meeting with them was beyond help?
No. And I meet a few. I have a portfolio of work that sits under the umbrella of intolerables. No. Maybe... No, there's caveats to that, right? Like, who's going to be willing to help that? But there's always,
Does someone need to be willing to help themselves?
Of course.
Of
course, makes it so much easier.
How can someone... I've got a specific example in mind here. How can someone not let trauma define them? The example I've got is my girlfriend, a friend of hers who works in retail in Newmarket.
Yeah.
Last week, a young woman came in with a can of deodorant and a lighter and was flaming at her, and then had a knife and held her up at knife point. And as you'd expect, it's a very traumatic event.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is the sort of... I don't know if this is going to be the case here, but it could be the sort of thing that defines a person's life or causes you to crumble.
Yeah.
How can someone not let a traumatic event like that define them?
I mean, it may feel counterintuitive for some of us. Oftentimes what we do with trauma or anything we consider potentially traumatic is that we try to avoid thinking about it, try to distract ourselves away from that thing and focus on other aspects of our lives. That's helpful. But one thing that traumatic events call upon us is the opportunity to better study ourselves, our resources, skill sets, maybe in situations like that. That's quite a specific situation, right? So how do you let it not affect you is firstly realizing that the frequency with which that has happened in terms of the wider scope of your life makes it a null event in some ways, right? It's an exceptional event because it's so shocking, but it's so shocking because it's an oddity, right? And so you kind of stretch your mind and think in a scheme of things, how likely is this to happen? And if it was, what are the capabilities, the level of awareness you're going to build in order for this to be something you consider manageable as opposed to shocking in the future. So, I mean, there are systemic things to be considered here. And it blows my mind that this happened in New Zealand. It blows my mind, right? Because we don't have that level of preparedness. We don't have, the last thing in the world you want to imagine is a security guard in every shop checking people for lighters. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. So maybe, the other side to it is, what do I need to build? But more importantly, what it is that I did in this moment that helped me survive it. Like, the beauty of having moments like these is that clearly you're on the other side of them, looking back at them. So what it is that allowed you to survive it, to endure it, to see yourself as someone who is capable of making it through a moment like that. Oftentimes we ignore it because we make ourselves the victim instantly. We were under someone else's will, we were in circumstances of duress, and we handled them. But there's much more in every situation that you have seen yourself through that deserves your attention. So, what will you build in the future? Can you give yourself an opportunity to recognize that this is an exceptional event And if you were to build anything at all, in what way will it make you more robust, more prepared, more aware, stronger? More importantly, looking back, what did you do that makes you the best total rock star in that moment and makes you want to high-five yourself going, wow, I can't believe I did that, you know?
Thanks so much for that. That's so helpful.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people listening to that, even though their situation will be slightly different, will be able to insert themselves into that story and take a lot away from that.
Yeah.
It's a great book. But did the book do well? When did the book come out, the Resilience Toolkit?
Couple of years ago.
Did it go all right?
I think so.
Yeah. I
think so. And by the way, I'm terrible
resource.
at promoting it. My job was to piece it together and then run.
Why were you terrible at promoting it?
It just feels entitled and pompous. You know what I mean? So I'm not. My publisher probably is preparing to chop my head off right now as I say that, but I don't like that part at all.
Yeah, is that from your military background in the SAS, like the inability to self-promote?
I mean, it's not. It's just.
It's not the SAS way, is it?
It's unwillingness to, because, I mean, the other thing is, in my defense, the book isn't about, I'm not the central figure. It's not a biography of my awesomeness. You know what I mean? It's the story of exceptional humans that have shared unbelievable detail and that has allowed a bunch of geeks like myself to piece it all together and go, hey, team, let's just roll with it. Try it out, So it would have felt wildly pompous and awkward to be like, oh, here I am with my book, Probably should have done it.
I've heard you on in previous interviews and podcasts talk exactly the same way about the military accolades you've got.
Oh, yeah, God, yeah.
You're just reluctant to have any sort of shine on yourself, aren't you?
Well, what? Yeah, because it never... Even if you are completely in isolation, you seldom are. Do you know what I mean? Other people preset the conditions for you. There is someone to catch you on the other side if you're lucky. There's usually... all sorts of unsung heroes in situations like that. It's just sometimes it so happens that you are the dude or dudess under the spotlight. And then I think it's the ugliest thing when you kind of get carried away with that and forget the contextual, the conditions that got you there,
But in life, there's going to be plenty of people that are going to try and drag you down. So surely you have to be your own cheerleader, no?
Yeah. You don't have to be a cheerleader. I think you just have to be... I think, as Jamie would say it, and sorry for my English, but that's what he would say. You just have to know your shit, I'm not trying to prove myself worthy. I am hoping my work contributes. That's basically it. And that makes it super easy. You know what I mean? It makes it extremely easy for me to stand along on stage with other rock stars, communicate science in a way that hopefully is relatable. And stay the course of what's needed. There's so much stuff we have to do in my space that if I bamboozled myself with a desire to prove myself to someone I've never met before or who decides to occupy the time criticizing me, then I'll be like a horrible waste of scientific resource. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know.
It's so much more fun to just go, look what I found,
So what's your relationship like with social media? Do you have any social media footprint?
I'm trying to.
Are you?
Sorry. Most of it is not my making. Most of it is, stuff I've shared or things I've done that have been shared by others, which I love. I really am trying to learn to communicate key messages and learning with others through the likes of LinkedIn. But I really don't like the habit I'm supposed to be getting into. I refuse to do it. Like, here am I with these amazing people talking about, who cares? Do you know what I mean? It
is the whole culture. It is, eh? It's social media. But you'd be unbothered if anyone criticised you in the comments. If there was any negative comments, you wouldn't give a shit, would you?
I mean, I'd feel concerned if someone is personally attacking me. I'd be interested to know if, for example, I have a blind spot in the evidence I'm playing with or the data I'm serving others with. If there's a gashing gap in my understanding that causes risk, I'd love to know it. But I don't love the idea of people. I can see why people do it, attacking people's identities. But because I'm a psychologist and I have almost dangerous level of empathy and interpersonal curiosity, I'd wonder what's going on for you, buddy? And that scares me because imagine if I end up having to reach out to everyone and go, I've got pro bono hours. Shall we chat? What's making you bitter? Hey, can we talk about your dramas? What gremlin are you holding on your shoulder that makes you want to critique someone?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a really good point. Like if my mental health is in a good space and someone like toots at me in the traffic, if my mental health is where it should be, I know to think, shit, that person must have some shit going on.
Yeah.
That I'm not aware of. But if my mental health isn't where it should be, I'm like, who the fuck are they? What are they? You know? I'll react badly.
I'm going to tell you something totally random though now. So I'm seldom on the likes of Facebook. I used to have it, but I now am on it again. And the reason for it is that there is this horrendous reality TV show in Bulgaria, and I love it because it gives me a glimpse of my old world. Not in the most helpful way for my pride in my country, but it's just a silly show, and it's called, I think it's The Bachelor or something equivalent of that, right? And so I occasionally look at these shorts, and then I look at the commentary underneath that, and all you see is individualized attack, like deeply grotesque personal attack on people's physical appearance, the words they use, the accents they have. And it just blows my mind because meanwhile, just around the corner from them, there are thousands of opportunities for them to see themselves as worthy humans. Everyone in the commentary boxes, you know? And then you have to have this bruised and battered identities moving through the daily lives, carrying this crazy white noise in their heads from someone they've never met, who if they met for a second, they'd be able to find some element of interest in one another. Forget about compassion, empathy, all that fluffy stuff, right? Like, forget about being an averagely good human. At the very least, some level of interest. So that to me is just the ugliest version of human presentation. Yeah,
it's icky.
Yeah.
You've mentioned Bulgaria a couple of times, so now's probably a good time to pivot and go into your early years.
Yeah.
I've got a little a present for you, a prop, and I want to bring it up and see what comes to mind, or
Stop it.
Or what?
Stop it.
Oh, don't be so excited. Don't be so excited.
Okay.
I've got this, and I just want to see, what memories it brings back.
Okay. What? How do you know about the Toblerone? Oh my God.
What's significant about Toblerone?
Firstly, this is a like luxury size. So
it's an airport size, duty-free size.
Am I allowed to keep it afterwards? Am I allowed to keep it after class?
That would be cruel, wouldn't
you can't take it. I'm going to wrestle you. I'm going to fight for this thing.
Oh, you'd kick my ass.
Oh my God, I'd be prepared to, honestly, for this thing. This thing means the world because when I was growing up, there was one shop that used to sell Western items, and it was called Kodicom, and there was only one of them, and it was in Auckland, in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. And so you had very limited supply of items inside of it. Toblerone is one of the things that was there. And also Kinder Surprise eggs. Those were the two things. But you'd get coupons if you were a worthy citizen. You couldn't just have coupons if you were some random, whatever that means. And so you had to use those coupons, I think there would be once a year, for one of these items. So this whole idea of having a Toblerone chocolate basically means you've made it in life, you know what I mean? And you could savor it. We had, I guess it will be around about the time of Christmas or your super special birthday. You'll have one of these things, and then you split the pieces, and then you savor them, and you like taste. I mean, this, and also any version of cheese that is not your standard feta cheese is the most common in Bulgaria. My father went on a hang gliding competition in Switzerland, early stages, post-communist times. And imagine the dude, like he would have gone there with a whole bunch of delegates from all over Europe. And he came back having gone through he called it the Swiss table. Didn't realize that this is like a buffet breakfast, you know. So he'd go there with serviette and stash in it a whole heap of cheeses from the breakfast table to bring back home for us. And we had that in our fridge for, probably an unhealthy period of time, just like eating tiny pieces of. I was like, what? How absurd is that?
From the perspective
of. Oh my God! I'm keeping this. I'm just going to take it away from you.
It's yours. It's yours.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing those insights. Like from the perspective of where I'm sitting, born and raised in New Zealand, it seems like an unimaginable upbringing. Like what you just explained there in that brief answer about the Toblerone.
Yeah.
Like government-issued vouchers and
Yeah.
rations. And, I mean, you mentioned COVID before. That's the closest, I suppose, in New Zealand we've come to experience anything like that, which is a long way off what you went through in Bulgaria.
So I've been in New Zealand more than half my life. The best new home anyone could possibly have, the best place. But it doesn't matter how many ways and how many times I look back, I can't see these times as unimaginable or difficult, obviously because I've experienced them, but also because there's an assumption here that if we don't have access to all of these things we are accustomed to, in some way someone else is lacking. We weren't starving. We had quite a significant level of scarcity in all sorts of resources we consider here to be normal. But the piece that we had there in abundance that we haven't quite, I'm not witnessing to the same extent here, is remarkable level of connection with others, ability to share stuff, share insights. I mean, here is an example. During our kind of harshest crisis periods, we would be having electricity shortcuts, and it'll be nighttime that they will be unplugged. The winter in Sofia, in Bulgaria generally, is harsh. And so you would have no electricity in the coldest hours. But you also didn't have anything to cook your food on. So you'd have one person with the gas cooker and we'll make communal meals for, several apartments around us. You don't have electricity, so you don't have TV, which nobody really had anyway. It had like one channel or whatever. But we'll have guitars, and you'll have stories, and you'll have connection, you have giggles, and you have advice and discussions on the Bible, which was like no one was particularly religious. This is post-communist time. But the understanding of deeper philosophical ideas is a gift I don't think we have because we are too busy with quick switch stuff and like access. So I kind of, I see it as an epic gift. I've been talking a bit of recent about the best pastime activity we had with my cousins. So we didn't have toys, too many toys. I had a karting, so a race car that my father built for me for my birthday, for my 12th birthday, with proper engine on the side of it that burned half of the people's faces that would sit on it. And MiG-21 retired tires on the side. Exceptional, super dangerous. Hence, my son could never experience the level of risk we did. But we would spend the whole time buzzing around on this thing with borrowed bag and stolen fuel. And we would spend the rest of our time chasing next to a giant truck tire that someone had acquired up and down this hill. We spent the entire childhood seeing which one of us is going to be faster than the tire. And if you were the smallest member of the family or the visitor at the time, you'd be in the tire trying to keep it. This is epic. But along the way, you have some epic conversations. You build lifetime bonds. You understand what you're made of. You learn that you're not going to die if you roll down a hill. It's amazing stuff. So, I don't see it as
And you were a diver, right? You were a really good diver, like
springboard diver.
Yeah, could have been like Olympic class.
Yeah. But I mean, again, the gift and the gnarliness of communist time is that you didn't really get to choose that. So we would get chosen in our first year at school. So I would have been 5 from selectors for different teams, and they look at your body build and muscle dexterity and choose what you're fit for and what you're not. And you hope like hell that you're chosen for something, because then you kind of have to be awkward for a few years and try and become a geek. It was. And then if you're selected and you're half good, you get given the schooling that requires you to be exceptional. And you can't, because of the context is driving you in this direction, right? It's the standard is, this is your opportunity to show yourself some level of control and influence, that you can perfect something, that you can chase after something. You can see yourself executing something with perfection. You dream about it, you move about it, you talk about it. I love that.
But even in that, like applying the New Zealand lens again, it's like that choice is taken away. Like you're being told what to do.
And I know I should be bitter about it, but I'm not. You know what I mean? Because it's like, is it a choice taken away, or is it an opportunity streamlined? I'm not suggesting that this is a way forward. Like if I told my son, or had some gangster trainer telling my son what to do, they will know about it. And I love my son's. I love his a blunt no. I didn't choose that approach, but it freaks me out still. I'm like, what do you mean? I can tell you that this is very good for you. Just go for it. No. So I don't know. It's I appreciated it. I appreciated it because it gives you an opportunity to see yourself chase perfection, this elusive thing, which my son will never have. I mean, he just switches appetites all the time. We just put up a different team poster. You know, we move from rugby to soccer to something else. And it's like this flighty thing. It's like, you know, flimsical. Yeah,
it's almost like a curse of choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's too many options.
Yeah.
But I suppose when I heard this about you, I just sort of imagined myself in your shoes, and I'm petrified of heights. So if a selector came around and said, "Oh, Dom, we want you to be a diver," there's no way I could jump off a 10-metre board.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Well, I mean, me too. But then you tell yourself that. And then, do you know, we had this epic trainer, Auntie Mary. And Auntie Mary is the harshest woman I've ever met. Like, no one. That's probably why I have no fear, because I've rolled with her for like 11 years of my life. I know the chick. But this is not entirely inappropriate and unsupported these days. But if you chickened out on something or half executed the jump, she knows you have potential to execute. She was a bit like, you know. She'd climb up the steps and you could hear doom, doom. Sorry, I've said that story before. And you know the jandal is coming. You know, people speak of jandals. I reckon the Balkan jandal is a way heavier weight than the New Zealand one. You know what I mean? Oh, and you can imagine, like in your togs or swimsuit, the jandal hits different, you know? Like it's not, you don't even have a barrier.
That story has not aged particularly well. It's a
I know,
fabulous story.
It is the story, you know.
Yeah. So you moved to New Zealand when you were 17. What do you know about New Zealand or about the English language? Like, were you exposed to any American TV shows or anything?
So it's weird. We didn't have that yet. What we did have were series of videotapes. There were contraband, probably recordings of MTV or some TV shows that were played in Turkey. And we would all have like truck driver friends that would go and import, export stuff or move content between Turkey and Bulgaria. Turkey was an amazing place at the time, still is. But we had videotapes of the likes of Thomas the Tank. And no, it wasn't Thomas the Tank. It was some other TV show that had very basic English description of apple and pear and colour. So that was the level of English we had, you know, from those videotapes. Bless them. Bless the contraband videotapes.
They came in handy.
I'm selling all sorts of propositions here that is fully unacceptable. We're talking about different time in human history here. But when we got here, we knew very little because this was some time back now, obviously. And my father, all that he chose to communicate were not because he was trying to be deceptive. He was communicating the stuff that interested him, which was hills and mountains and, you know, sheep in paddocks, abundant spaces. So imagine it to be this endless barn space. We had no, it's not. There was a movie. There was some kind of movie, but I can't remember the name of it, that had come out that we saw that roughly depicted New Zealand. Now when I look back, it was New Zealand in the 1800s, so probably not so relevant. But we had all sorts of twisted images. And then when we got to New Zealand, and this is the thing, like you imagine Bulgaria is like, I don't know, some horrible, messy third world country in the Balkans. But to us, it was flesh and amazing and full of all sorts of dynamic stories. And as much as it sounds like it was controlled context, I personally had amazing level of freedom, you know. Music, rebellion was up and everyone was up and at it, some version of rebellion. We would protest against the government of the day, just like it's happening right now in Bulgaria. And so I found immense level of freedom. But we arrived in Christchurch and my father picked us up in this like pink Mini Cooper that he had acquired for $50. And he had painted it pink with paint that was not supposed to be used for cars because, you know, didn't know better or didn't have much more. And we drove through Christchurch and he was like, when is the city going to start? Where are the people? It was just this quiet, low-lying thing full of, empty spaces, which is kind of scary because you're like, what am I missing? The thing that was going on through my mind, at least at the beginning, was, what am I missing? Where is the chaos? You know, because your brain is wired for it. And you're like, that's my vibe. I'm traveling with it. And suddenly there is nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, were you mad at your dad, at least for a time?
No.
No, because
Why?
you're 17 years old. All your friends, all your roots, all your connections are in Bulgaria. You've established yourself as this really good diver, and then suddenly you've got to almost Control-Alt-Delete to start fresh as a 17-year-old. How are you not mad?
I mean, again, my dad is an amazing salesperson, not professionally, just in interpersonal relationships. So basically what he sold us is the idea that we are stepping into New Zealand for a short period of time to learn English and experience a different culture. And it's a pretty cool thing. Everyone in my part of the world at the time would have dreamed of the West, some sort of space where you could be free to move, to roam, to explore ideas. So that was not a difficult sell. The other thing is diving was a thing I loved, but it wasn't the thing I was imagining myself to do for the rest of my life. Law was. So I did 2 years for one just so I can start at school, just so I can start law school early. My mission in life when I got to New Zealand was, when we realized that this is not a short-term thing, to dive right into law school here, which was a bit of a dumb idea because we didn't have any English, So I had to take my mum to university to sign a waiver. My mum didn't know a word in English, not even apple, pear, and red and yellow. So I can start uni as quickly as I can.
So before uni, if I've got the timeline correct, you go to Hagley High School for a little bit?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Your intelligence is amazing.
So, what's that like? Can you remember your first friend?
I remember a whole pile of them.
Really?
Hopefully they consider themselves my friends.
Right.
I still keep them, I do.
I can imagine how. I don't know. Could you understand what people were saying, or how did you form connections?
Well, I couldn't really understand what people were saying in full, but I can understand intention. And this is the aim. You submerge yourself as quickly as you can, right? You move around the streets, and the thing, I hope New Zealand never changes in that way. Like, the level of acceptance I felt was extraordinary. I mean, there's this thing. I'm sure every person who has moved from some place to another and has an accent realizes how when you have an accent or you don't have too many words, people think they have to speak to you extra slow or extra loud. That used to piss me off because it's like, I understand. I just don't know how to articulate it back, Mm-hmm. But that was the only obstacle. Is these loud, slow-speaking people that I realized it was not because of them, but because of me, which sucks. But no, I think feeling accepted, maybe if I wasn't accepted, I wouldn't have even noticed, to be fair. And I don't mean it in any weird way, but I was so determined to give this a good go. And we didn't have much time to dilly-dally. I got a job really quickly. We needed to all hunker down and try and make things work because we didn't have what we had proportionately in New Zealand was sweet all. So we all had to work. And so working, paying attention to something that pays you the paycheck, teaches you English real fast,
so you did some waitressing or catering jobs?
Yeah. All sorts.
Can you remember a moment when you realised I belong here?
So this may be the weirdest thing to say, but maybe it's because of my dad and his style of upbringing, but the rule of life was that you belong wherever you choose to be. And I've loved the fact that in New Zealand, I haven't had to question that. I've never felt like I had to question it. No one ever made me feel like I have to pause and inquire. And this is a big pain point for me now, observing some of the patterns of behavior we're witnessing globally with people all over the world, particularly immigrants and refugees. That feeling that they have to somehow earn the right to belong on planet Earth blows my mind because it is a hard yakka. Like, my path was... It may seem tricky, but it was easy because we were brought up or accepted to value principles that make you feel like you could do anything you want. And the only measure of your discomfort is how far you're willing to push yourself. I mean, that's easy. It's a game of you versus you. But the fact that there are people all over the world that feel as if they have to somehow fold themselves into a pretzel to fit in blows my mind. It annoys me. Do you know what I mean? It makes me angry. This is one thing I'd post on social media for as soon as I stop using blunt words about it. I was in London a couple of 6 weeks ago, and we've been hearing about what's going on with those sentiments for the longest of time, anti-immigrant sentiments. Everyone who drove me from place to place, everyone who was in some service industry around the traps clearly had come from somewhere. And the level of unease they reported around who they were and where they were from made me furious. I just wanted to stop everything I was doing and become an activist, because it's just absurd. It's absurd how anyway.
So when you come to New Zealand at 17, I'm guessing you don't even know what the word resilient means, but you were clearly you clearly had like bucket loads of it, without even sort of being familiar with what the word was or what the definition was. Possibly. I mean,
challenge gives you that if you choose to accept it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mission impossible. What parts of Bulgaria still live with you today?
The best place on earth. Everyone should visit, maybe one at a time because it's quite small. There is an epic village called Mirkovo where my family comes from, my father's family comes from. I think 6 centuries we've come from this place. And it's insane, it's epic, it's in the middle of the mountains. The place I grew up is basically where 2 rivers meet. And it's quite a unique cultural flavor about it because it was never taken over by the Ottomans back in 800 years ago now. And so it has its own unique language and its own unique customs that are totally bonkers. No one quite believes in them, but everyone does them anyway. And it's all in good spirit and it's freaking epic. I love it. It feels like the kind of place, I mean, it's not too dissimilar to Clifton Village, to be fair. Like, you move about bare feet in full respect of your environment. No one particularly cares, but everyone cares for you. If that makes sense.
It does. Makes perfect sense.
Love it.
So you have this dream of being a lawyer.
Yeah.
So you get into university and you do 2 years of law school before you realise it's not for you.
Yeah.
How difficult is that? Trying to get a law degree while having limited grasp of the English language. Did you have to work like so much harder than everyone else?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, translating every word was just a silly decision, but I'm also grateful that I did it, you know what I mean? Because that would have been the hook I have for who I thought I was and what I was capable of. And so if I had some wise advisor at the time that told me I probably should wait my time and gradually build my capabilities to match my ambition, I would have just been devastated. Because it's maybe part of it is, so one thing I had that I noticed at the beginning was that whole idea that because you cannot speak clearly enough, that you don't understand the world to the same extent as others do. And that used to piss me off, right? So I desperately wanted to feel free to do this, maybe communist upbringing, maybe just my mindset, but capacity for contribution means the world. And there's a proximity to my experiences like Bosnia and some of the conflicts I'd studied from around the world, international law. Human rights was an obsession I had, and I still do. It's just that by the time when I spent 2 years in law school studying every spare minute I had, it was either work or study. There was nothing else. All times of the day and night. I got to summer school, international law, to realize how impotent it was. And it felt devastating that I'd invested 2 years of my youth and gotten my first wrinkles, doing something that was useless. And I'm not saying it is, but it felt as if it was to my restless and immature mind at the time. And at the same time, just literally across the yard I did law and psych conjoined. And psych felt a no-brainer because it's just, who doesn't want to know everything about human psychology? It's epic. So it was easy, that was smooth, that was just logical and exciting thing to do. There was an epic professor next door at law school called Ming Singer. And she was studying, weirdly, she was studying refugee and immigrants establishment, kind of principles of establishment. How do they integrate in a new context? And she suggested that to me once. She probably didn't even mean it. And I walked out of law school and I was like, please take me as a student. Can I be here? And so she had to remember who I was for a minute, and accept me.
And then you sort of accidentally end up in the army. I believe the story goes you had a male friend who was going to interview, and you sort of just tagged along for shits and giggles.
Well, also for research purposes, because I was an...
What do you mean? No one ever says that.
Yeah, everyone does. No. No, also because... so New Zealand Defence Force Officer Selection Board is pretty much... considered, and not just New Zealand Defence Force, selection boards of militaries are the mecca of profiling and behavioral observations. And I was an industrial psychologist, or at least I'd studied my master's in industrial and organizational psychology at the time. And if you want to know anything about how this stuff is done at scale, you'd want to go there. And what a better way of learning it than being in it. I mean, that is just the best, like it's the best petri dish of all things mega geeky science. So, I rocked on in to support. I had already lined up a job in a local...
consultancy place.
Yes.
Yeah.
That now when I look back, I probably should have been a wiser person. Do you see how many times we say that to ourselves? It's like, if I was just a little wiser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you ever stop to think, hypotheticals are kind of a waste of time, but do you ever wonder how different life would have looked if you went that way instead of this way?
I'm so grateful I didn't. Because the minute I think of it, as much as this place is incredible, everyone there is incredible, I have a handful of friends that are still in that fabric and that are in that town, and they are amazing human beings, but maybe there's a series of personality flaws in me that make me want to know the world intimately, messily. I want to roll with life. Right? So the thought of going back there and having chosen that safe, logical path frightens the bejesus out of me, because it just makes me feel like nothing would have changed from Monday to Friday, or from year 2000 to 2005. I would have just been the same, climbing up some kind of ladder I don't even want to be on, minding some kind of, yuck, no.
Surely there were moments, though, where you're stuck in Waiouru in the middle of winter and you're like, an air-conditioned office would be quite nice right now. No?
No. But there was a time when my husband and I decided we were going to be proper grown-ups and like sensible adults, and we had a child and a farm and some chickens or whatever. And I remember being in this thing, which it's a weed garden, but I keep calling it the meditation garden because it's got a platform for meditation that no one sits on. So I was there, and I remember it must have been a day when Jamie and I were trying to be normal. And it was freaking frustrating because it was like, you feel like this, pressure cooker environment where you just try to have some sort of average exchange. And we hadn't been in the same house ever in our relationship when we had, but never at the same time. We had kind of overlapping deployments for the first 3 years of our relationship, which is why it flourished. It flourished, our relationship, from a distance. And then suddenly we were stuck together, and I was on the platform, and I out loud said, "What the have I done?" And it would have been, and then poor Jamie heard it, and it hurt his feelings. And then it took us 3 years to have a conversation about that moment. I genuinely had this like, holy moly, it's gotten to me. How creepy is that? Poor man.
Yeah, how did you guys? How did you? What's the meet cute? How did you get together?
We worked together in the unit, and
is this so he was in the SAS and you were the SAS Psychologist?
Yeah. There's varying. Jamie has a different report. Jamie thinks that I chased after him. I don't remember him. I didn't notice him. I don't remember him at that beginning point, and definitely didn't notice him chasing me. So he must have just been overcrowded in a chase. But poor man. So sorry, and I've got a bit of a flight thing, so I'm coughing on occasion. Relationship. I think the attraction between us had been building for some time, but the way in which our work was aligned basically meant that it wasn't a good idea for us to be together. And because we were in the same team, it's just a messy, messy thing. So I'd moved out of the team by that stage. We had a couple of interactions. Jamie thought that they were romantic. I didn't recognize them to be that. Then we switched over, and Jamie thought that I was not interested, and I was very interested. And then he actually went to Afghanistan. And so he had done this incredible trip by his lonesome self on his Harley Davidson from the top of the north to the bottom of the south, by himself on a Harley, to set his mind for the next chapter. And came past my house in Christchurch to give me this collection of stones that he'd picked up from a lake along the way, which is the most romantic thing someone like Jamie would do. He's an amazing dude, but that's at these forming stages of his romantic bond. It wasn't a thing he would, and so that moment locked in, and we became a couple when he was in Afghanistan. So via Teams or Zoom or one of those platforms. We had a moment where, in the most uncomfortable way possible, him and I, who would typically be clowns and fight with one another for work reasons, all of a sudden locked eyes onto each other and had the most uncomfortable 10 minutes of staring, gazing into each other's eyes from a distance, and that was it. How crazy is that?
It's such a cool story, and it seems like a really good. Just you've said a few things today, sort of teasing him. So it seems like a really cool relationship you've got.
Yeah.
So lead psychologist in the SAS. Like, what does that mean in real terms? Are you like are these guys coming to you when they've got like issues and they need counselling, or are you just sort of observing them from afar and then passing your findings on to their superiors? Like, what does it mean?
I mean, the core function, every psychologist in the team is kind of quite a crucial part of the cog. This is a very, very small team we're talking about, that even if they're not in an operational cycle, are operating under extreme pressure, because training has to match operational context. So they move at quite a high cadence. The core role of the unit psychologist has always been to help selecting who steps through the gates. So typically, historically, we would have had Army, Navy and Air Force candidates. So these are people who are experienced in the military service that volunteer themselves for service with the SAS. And the psychologist, independent from other observers who are members of the team, conduct separate observations based on personality traits that they observe through profiling, as well as what they witness during interviews and during the course of selection, that nasty, grueling 6-day mother of a challenge that they go through. And then you support candidates through a training cycle that takes a whole year, and it's nasty, and it isolates them into a constant state of pain. Sorry for that. You observe them through this process, and then, of course, you stay with the team on every rotation that they do, which is operational rotation or training rotation, making sure that they are in the best state possible to operate effectively. So it's the most difficult challenge no, it's not the most difficult. It makes perfect sense. Everyone who is in this space wants to see themselves at the best, because if they aren't, they deplete the very thing they believe in, right? They detract from it. So it's an easier formulation in that way. You don't have to sell the proposition to someone who feels suboptimal. They need to step aside because they know intimately what it means to have one component of a critical fabric that doesn't quite function as it should. But yeah, the job goes on and on and on, because you form extremely deep relationships of extreme trust with people. And many of them step away, and the nature of who they are and how they work means that they step away and remove themselves entirely from the fabric, from defence force as well, often. So yeah.
And do they? I say you, but I'm specifically talking about this role, the lead psychologist. Do they like you, or do they just tolerate you? Are you a pain in the ass? You know what I mean? Are you a speed bump on their way to reaching their goal?
I sincerely hope. I mean, it could be all of these things at the same time for some people, right? Because it depends on the message that you deliver. But you are an enabler first and foremost, and anyone who cares enough, which they do if they get there, and has enough cognitive ability to process the function you serve, should see you as that. And they do. They see you as an enabler. It is our job to make sure that everyone, with what they've got, as they say, warts and all, feels like that white noise can be reduced, that they can be the optimal performer in the context that they've got. So the ones that are paying attention, which by the way is everyone, know it, and they use it, and they take full advantage of it. And it's the hardest and the most rewarding job on a planet.
Are they able to trick you?
I'm sure they try, but they trick themselves. Like, it kind of you leak the truth, right? You leak the truth because why? Because if you trick me, you trick yourself. You get found out. This is the thing about it. It's not a blurry officey space. Like, you can't hide behind a wall. You can't hide and make yourself an instant coffee around a corner. It's an environment that shows you. It fleshes out all your vulnerabilities. So tinkering on the edges of fibbing and masking is just like, you're just a long way down to the mice. It's like you'd want to pull the pin on that stuff real quick and just be blunt about it, because it shows it. It shows all your spikes real quick.
So you mentioned the grueling 6-day training and the other training that goes along. So what sort of conditions are you in during that time? Are you staying in nice barracks with
nice barracks.
A heater and
I love how you say
satin
nice
sheets?
Barracks, of course. You get, I mean, this is a cruel thing to say, because in comparison to everyone else, they get no sleep effectively, or they get enough sleep to be physically possible and survivable for them to continue with the selection course. But, there's the necessity of the process basically means that you get, minimal 2-hour sleep. You sleep wherever you can, but it's nothing compared to what a candidate would go through on the selection course. You know what I mean? It's, and your body isn't fussy when it needs sleep. You just
sleep deprivation is one of the worst. I hate it so much. Did you work with Willie Apiata, or can you not really say? Can you not sort of talk about specifics?
Well, he was part of our team when I was in the team. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What's he like?
Awesome, as the rest of them. Yeah. They're all unique and special in their own way. But I value him immensely.
What makes these guys stand out from the rest of the army or society, or the people that try for the SAS and don't make it?
So this is the piece behind that Resilience Toolkit component. We spent a lot of time wondering. Over the years, we would even do benevolent kind of competition between assessors about choosing or basically placing our bets on who would make it through. And so you'd imagine that there are things like physical robustness or physical grit and hardiness that makes you capable of passing through selection, but that's the least important part. The starting point, the most consistent point we know matters most, is self-awareness. If you don't understand yourself, like you said, sleep deprivation sucks, right? It's physically painful, it's agonizing, it does hell with your brain and your thoughts. But if you have self-awareness and you have the ability and the experience to help you manage yourself in moments of trial and duress, you know how to endure this moment and how to show up and let your body catch up with your ambition. And so people who understand themselves first and foremost, that's a core criteria. If they don't know how to adjust and adapt themselves to different contexts. The role itself demands that you are, what do they call it? Swiss knife.
Swiss Army knife. Yeah.
So you more adjust, adapt in order to achieve the mission. If you don't know who you are and how to manage yourself, you don't have the capability and robustness to morph and adjust. So self-awareness and interpersonal awareness, interpersonal curiosity, contextual intelligence. Contextual intelligence means being able to read the hues and cues in your context and adapt in order to amplify success mission. And that in turn takes ability for access to curiosity, which means they have to have high level of stress tolerance, because you can't be, like I was telling you at the beginning, you can't be freaked out and curious at the same time. But curiosity is critical predictor. So intellect, of course, is a key thing, not necessarily on the book, but ability to look at things, flip them around, and see a different perspective or different way of engaging.
And for the most part, I know everyone's different, but for the most part, are these guys sort of like emotionally unavailable or reluctant to, talk about vulnerability and, deep stuff, or
no.
No?
No, I think maybe the threshold is different.
The what? The threshold?
Because I don't think so, because it's extremely difficult to be emotionally unavailable when you have some of the most complex emotions that you have to logically navigate or emotionally process through your system, right? But it's more about what is the threshold. And some of the reasons why perhaps some of them might be perceived as emotionally unavailable is the fact that operationally they cannot disclose a lot of the stuff that may trigger emotion or has trap or cause them to experience the most significant emotions in their lives. And then there's, of course, a question of magnitude and relevance. Like, how do you, if you have traveled in the same bubble with these same individuals for 5 to 10 to 20 years, suddenly relate to someone who decides the biggest pain in their existence is how the administrator is stuffing up the coffee order? It's like, what? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And choose that instead of addressing the issue, they're going to bitch about it. Like, I don't think that's emotionally inevitable. That's basic intellect, right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying at the beginning. Like, how do you not roll your eyes at the triviality of some of the stuff you deal with these days?
Yeah.
Like, the problems must just seem so insignificant.
Yeah.
Your military career took you to deployments all over the place: Afghanistan, Syria, the Middle East, East Timor, Solomon Islands. What did the military unlock that civilian life just couldn't?
I mean, firstly, the idea of belonging and camaraderie and how much this means, like, right, how you can find yourself at home anywhere, how if you have something to offer, you can make it so that you are and feel accepted no matter where you go. I love the feeling of knowing I'm at home wherever I go. It still stays with me, right? I've got my backpack is in my car. Can you believe it? Normally I have it with me, and there's that feeling that you don't need very much to be effective and to contribute. I know I keep saying the words contribute, but that does matter the world to me. Also, it unlocks immense level of interpersonal curiosity. Normally, when we're thinking of military, we are thinking about highly regimented and structured environments. That's a part of it for safety reasons and to develop your skills and capabilities. But past that point, you have to be able to earn respect with everyone you might be in charge of, everyone that might be in charge of you. And that means you show up in the fullness of your range. It's amazing. It's an amazing experience. I've loved it.
I just can't imagine. Yes, I've met you twice now. I met you in Christchurch at a keynote thing about a month ago, and you're in the studio today. And on both occasions, you've been immaculately presented. I'd even go as far to say you're the best dressed podcast guest I've had in 300 guests. I can't imagine you roughing it with boots on and military overalls.
Can I tell you something really embarrassing? Okay, so I have a boss who probably. Steve, I don't know how I didn't destroy him, but Steve is an amazing guy. And when I got selected and was sent to Waiuru, so the thing about dressing up is I like it because life is extremely precious. And if I'm to show up, I like to show up with respect to my physical space, right? And so it's not, I don't obsess over it. I just happen to have a handful of things I like to pay respect to my day, right? But when I joined the army, firstly, I'm the one that would iron. I didn't realize you shouldn't be ironing your DPMs, your, kind of field suit, because of course it has lines in it that you could see through binoculars for the longest of time. I'd iron my uniform. I was the only one that would do it. Took me a hot second to learn it. Paid my price for it. You see, you can't be incognito because I'd be shining like a bright star in someone's binoculars in the night, But the next layer to it is that I apparently, I don't remember that, but I found the DPMs, which is your field dress in the military, to be quite unfitting for women. And so I asked my boss, one of my first questions is, can I ask a tailor to shape it?
You're doing alterations.
What a muppet. What a muppet. And the thing is, I get to see this same amazing dude called Steve, who I know he values me as the greatest challenge of his career. But also every year he goes, Alia asked if she can shape her DPMs. I'm like, get over it, Still, we can still look good. We don't have to look like sacks of potatoes, but apparently that's operationally functional. So, yeah.
It's such a great story. We've been going for an hour 15 and we haven't even talked about the 2013 Syria incident. Is it difficult for you to talk about, or when you talk about it, do you just sort of go on autopilot, or?
Probably the autopilot part. I don't find it difficult,
Was it difficult to talk about for a time? Or no, has it never been?
I don't think so. I think the difficult part was imagining that it has to be difficult. I don't find it...
Can you explain that?
So for example, if you're thinking about being taken hostage, right? It is a difficult thing typically to communicate and to process, but in our situation, we had opportunities to gain control of the situation, to influence our experience to the better. And more importantly, after we were released, we requested a period of time where we were kept on our observation post, the same place we were taken from, and unpacked every little moment of our interaction together as a team. So for us, that was a closed space. Now, as a psych, it took me ages to realize why is it not difficult for me to talk about it. And in fact, because I don't think of it as in any way the most frightening thing in life, it's easy for me to talk about it, but it's not important to the same extent as it might be interesting to someone who hasn't heard it before. But one of the things that I hesitate as a psych is this temptation we have to look for trauma where it isn't, or to try to imagine that something was overwhelming or challenging when it was perhaps interesting more than painful. So I don't know what I mean by that. It wasn't difficult. It's not difficult for me to talk about it. It was difficult to go through it, but not difficult to talk about it.
That must be the most frightening thing that's ever happened in your life, though, right? Top
not
3?
Necessarily.
Top 5?
No, not necessarily. It was
not
just
necessarily.
No.
What could top that?
I mean, there were other situations where we felt we had less control, and luckily they transpired well. I genuinely think the most frightening, far more frightening things have happened to me, or I felt more frightened as a civilian, navigating the office politics I didn't realize existed prior to that,
Right.
And I'm not being funny about it. That seems a whole heap more complex than negotiating your release out of a hostage situation. Again, for that same reason is that you have fewer options, You can be crystal clear.
Yeah, but it's, as I said at the beginning, like one's a matter of potentially life and death and the other one isn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so before the kidnapping, what did a normal day look like as a UN military observer?
Well, see, this is the thing. The normal days were not particularly normal because at the time, 2013, it was operationally intense period. It still is in the region. It's just that we have much fewer UN military observers in the area. And so a normal day would basically entail navigating streets that would be peppered with improvised explosive device. And you don't always have the intel on that. You don't know where you're going and whether the places you're going are risk or low risk. The overall operational area was considered high threat. We knew that. But you don't know where that threat will present itself. And because you're talking about multiple groups fighting against each other, as well as against the government forces, military forces, you simply couldn't predict where the hotspot would be. You can make assumptions. That was our job, is to read the terrain and make assumptions of what area is safe to progress through or not. But it was always kind of appreciating that your intelligence is quite limited and that is very much fickle and subject to a whole heap of changes that not even the people initiating them would know, So it's extremely messy and volatile environment. The biggest threat, I guess, that was one of them. Another one was increasing, discontent in local populations with UN presence and what they perceived to be lack of impact or lack of power that we held. Now, the UN had been there for many decades, and there was a different perception of it in the past. People had relied upon it. But as the conflict increased and this starvation started kicking in and areas were obliterated in conflict, you were perceived as an imbugerance or an entitlement by some. So gestures like the ones we were given when we were taken hostage, which is this one, we'll chop your heads off, began to pop up as you're patrolling streets. In the past, you'd have kids waving at you because they expect you to be some kind of savior. But we hadn't proven ourselves in this extreme. It wasn't our mission. So extremely complicated because you also are a human that empathizes and observes the environment. And it felt the whole way through that we were in a fishbowl with some sort of assumed power and influence, observing extraordinary and unjustifiable human suffering, a mess. And we had the power and the capabilities to move out of that space ourselves. Now, that was the surreal thing. Imagine you're traversing the streets of a nearby suburb, knowing full well that this suburb is in agony and on fire, physically often, and you have the freedom to pop over through a gate and have a cup of tea and glass of wine next door on the other side of a fence. That is simply symbolic. And for you, because you have a UN armored vehicle and a special UN pass, you could step in and out as many times as you fancy without any repercussions, whereas everyone is locked on the other side. It's insane. It's insane, and you still have to do the good work, because if you remove yourself, it becomes a failed state. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's the nasty catch-22.
But did you have any idea that something like this could happen? You know it's a possibility, but
do you
think it's a 1% possibility, a 10% chance? What sort of likelihood? I know you trained for this, but what sort of likelihood is it that something like this is going to happen?
I mean, there's so many if then in this kind of equation, right? So if you're stepping into these places and you're volunteering yourself for a mission of this nature, you are prepared for the extremes. And if you don't expect that this is 100% possibility, you're not prepared. You're just contemplating an option. And that's not an entertainment, service. It's a military service. So the point I'm making is you have to be prepared and have considered virtually every eventuality, or you are a liability. The job is then not to make that possibility the thing that, I guess, masks your judgment or reasoning. And to know that no matter what possibility presents itself at 100% risk, you have your wits about you to make the right response, to make the right decision, and to get yourself out of a pickle and others. That's the most important part. Yeah.
So you're sleeping at night. It's nighttime.
Yeah.
And then windows break,
Yeah.
doors get barged open. What happens?
Yeah, so middle of the night, May 2013, this was probably 5 months into my deployment cycle, nearly 6 in Syria. We'd already been moved out of a number of areas that were considered unsafe. And we were in an area that was considered safer than the rest, very close to an area of evacuation into Israel. And so in the middle of the night, I actually woke up so we had this container building, which was our sleeping quarters or kind of observation post living area. And in it, they'll have a small area that was basically an operational center, which is radios and laptops and stuff, and 2 bedrooms adjacent to it, as well as a bunker on the side of it where our 3rd team member would sleep. And we would be on rotation because of the level of threat in the area was so severe that we had to have someone on observation throughout. So it was my turn to rest. My colleague was on duty that night, and I woke up. 2 weird things. The first one wasn't too weird. So I heard Miko making a mayday call, which was my colleague. And mayday call basically means, something is seriously wrong. And he was making the mayday call to our headquarters on the other side of the fence. And at the same time, I heard a whole heap of noises that in my sleepy state, I thought were foxes barking. And I don't know, I'm sorry, I've said that story a couple of times, but it is what it is. So over microseconds, I caught myself thinking, there are foxes barking. And then my brain went, well, why would there be foxes barking? Do foxes bark? Do we have foxes here? So, when you go through this weird and all you want to do is just stay asleep because you wiped out. And then basically I woke up because I appreciated that. Maybe I still don't know if foxes bark. I keep meaning to Google it. And I still don't know. So the foxes barking were a bunch of lads. So this was a militia group, amalgamation of all sorts of baddies jumping over our fences and issuing out orders to one another, rapid fire. Miko was observing one particular angle of our observation post that had limited vista, so limited kind of scope of observation where he was. And when I when I got up, I could see that there's a whole heap of men already surrounding our observation area. Now, this may not seem too odd that you suddenly have a whole bunch of armed militants, 38 of them counted, surrounding an observation post, but it was quite uncommon because these areas were wrapped by minefields for our protection. They were also heavily fenced. And so they clearly meant more than a sweet kumbaya to have made that effort. And then for weeks prior to that, we knew that we were being observed. So we were being observed by others. There was an area nearby, which was a water tower, an abandoned water tower that had been occupied. We knew that, it was occupied because there was light on and we could see ourselves being watched. So we knew, they know how many of us there are. They knew our patterns of movement clearly. They weren't too difficult to decipher. It wasn't anything secret. It was pretty obvious rotation plan. They would have already known that we were unarmed because we had been unarmed for 50 years prior. And so clearly they meant business. So,
how many of you guys? Three
of us.
Three versus 38.
38, yeah.
That's an intimidating amount of people.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't arm wrestle your way to that. You've got to...
And that they're all armed?
They were all armed, yeah. Heavily armed.
They were also in the powerful position of, waking you guys up and catching you while you're sleeping before. As you said before about the foxes, you're confused and wondering what's going on. It takes a while to process. When do they start making the motions that you mentioned before about making a bad video?
Well, so a couple of minutes into the whole kerfuffle, so I jumped in my uniform, I moved to the front of the building, and by that stage the windows were being smashed up. So we were already losing control, largely because we weren't engaging. So I started a conversation, basically articulating some really basic things that I already knew, like, we are UN military observers, we're here to help, we're not here to do any harm, da-da-da-da-da. And very early on in this piece of discussion, which became a discussion, luckily for us, because we could have been in a world of hurt if it didn't, one of the team members basically signaled that they were taking us to make a bad video of us. And again, I keep saying this because this is a very important part of the narrative. This was not out of type, because videos of decapitation were one of those things that had exchanged between warring parties to state commitment to what the mission is.
I've seen one, and I'll never.
I'm sorry.
I'll never be able to forget it.
Yeah. It's a horrendous thing. It's just. So the pieces of information or intelligence we were gathering at the time had ample amount of that stuff just to help keep the tension and the level of anxiety proportionately high. So really, blunt message.
So at that moment, I mean, I'm just trying to think if I was in that position, whether I'd faint or pee myself or like what was going through your mind at that point?
Well, you were locked in, right? You are in a. You don't faint when you're in the middle of a discussion, right? Someone is offering you a possibility. Your job is to kind of think outside of it a little bit. I'm not saying that this was some sort of sophisticated approach we took at the time. The first thing is that initially they basically said to us that they're extracting us because someone else is coming to chop our heads off. But that changed really quickly because as we hesitated, they began to present more threat. And at one point, someone pointed, kind of an equivalent of bazooka to our gate, which was really stupid because we are in a container building. So, you don't
necessary. Chill out.
You're going to do yourself harm, like not the face. Seriously though, it's like, okay, but clearly they meant business. And so when you have this switch and desire to control and dominate, it becomes quite clear that these are not your buddies. So the job to be done, I think this is the beauty of moments like that. I don't think you would have fainted. I think most people would be, when they see this opportunity and you already have a conversation going, you want to find out a little bit more, or at least barter. We tried to barter for a little bit. We offered what we had. It wasn't interesting to the parties involved. And then we were off and away. We were dragged into the minefields that we thought were there to protect us. So it was quite a quick switch from sleep to action.
So you're marched through the minefields. Mm-hmm. Do they know where they're going?
Well, this is the
thing.
Do
they have a map?
Yeah, I don't know if they had a map. I mean, there was a couple of inshallah moments, which is like, if it goes, it goes. But they probably studied them, And this is the thing is we would have these minefields, but local shepherds would be hopping through those on a daily. Now, the thing is that, again, it's not particularly planned approach either for the local shepherds because mines of this age, they shift, they move with rain, with snow, with all of those conditions that are changing. They're not fixed in the same place, so they're extremely dangerous for that reason. It's an old minefield that has been put there since in the 60s, I think. So we had to just hop about. There's a moment where I signaled to them stupidly. I said, I didn't realize they have that much English. They hid it from us for a hot second, So we got to the minefields and they were trying to push us into them. And I said, no, don't go, no go, boom, boom, boom. And one of them said, no, boom, 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 and started jumping through them. And then we had to hop across, which, by the way, can I just share and hear about my mate's epicness? We were hopping through them and Mikko turned back at me because it was at the end of the procession. And he went, dude, we are doing it for real. Because I had apparently, I don't remember being unpretty in this incident, but apparently I looked like a total muppet and I had my teeth clenched, which is actually, when you look back at that, really dumb because
just bracing yourself for impact.
Like trying not to damage my teeth, in the explosion. Like what priorities, Like you want to be a really good-looking skull or something. So, but Mikko turned around and said that to me, we are doing it for real because we had been training for weeks at that time. But on this very day, we were doing burpee competition between each other, listening to a track by The Prodigy with that exact line, we walk through the minefields. And it's just like, I really love military humor and military camaraderie and what surviving or moving through difficult or seemingly difficult challenges gives you, which is your ability to recognize that you're not that shed hot. It's not the end of the world ever until it is. And, you can't do much about the end point. So you might as well have fun along the way, So good.
Can training properly or adequately prepare you for that? I mean, in training, you're not going to be beheaded at the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But training is dangerous also, right? So you're hopefully not going to be beheaded, at least not by accident. But the piece behind it is that you learn that you cannot fully control another person's will, but you certainly have multiple different choices along the way, multi-choice questions everywhere in situations like that, And they present themselves, we imagine that there's too many pressure points and the brain cannot absorb them, but actually in compressed environment, you should also anticipate that your supposed enemy is under pressure as well. It's actually a very difficult task to get someone to follow your will, even if you have many guns. Do you know what I mean? There's a whole heap of unpredictable elements that they also have to manage. Your job is to simplify and to come closer to a point where you can maybe negotiate, chat, discuss, I think we underestimate. The minute we catch ourselves as subordinate to somebody else, we make some really dumb decisions. If you appreciate that everyone has some level of challenge and a wicked amount of options running to their mind, and it's your job to simplify that and focus on the pivot points, it becomes easier, Jamie and I test this hypothesis in our daily, family arguments all the time.
Daily?
I'm joking. I just wanted to bring light to the mix.
So the captors, they march you to where you're going, which is what, like a building? How far away? Like a couple of kilometres?
Yeah, just down the hill from us. There's a beautiful village, Birajam it's called, a beautiful, beautiful village that was actually populated for hundreds of years by particular kind of cultural nuance of Assyrians. So really colourful, really bright, abandoned for quite some time, and abandoned in a hurry, which is a thing I will never forget. So that was probably one of the most frightening things I've ever experienced, less the hostage situation and more the impression of being walked into a building that in contexts like this, I could understand it as someone who's grown up in old worlds, right? You have countless treasures. The home itself looked like it was multi-generational just by virtue of what you witness. They had little kids' shoes at the front, I'll never forget, and it was still lined up in a way orderly, but covered in a whole heap of dust because the place had been pummeled by artillery rounds. This area, this village or town is extremely close to the area of separation between Israel and Syria. And the area of separation is where military equipment and personnel would be smuggled through into Syria from Jordan and from Lebanon. So that unfortunate place was right on the crossroads of it. And so it had huge amount of interest in terms of fire thrown at it for ages. And inside of it, you have the kind of treasures that you don't just pick up in that part of the world. You don't go to Costco, whatever shop we've got here. That new thing I'm not going to mention.
IKEA.
Don't even say it. That thing. You don't have fast furniture. You don't have fast stuff. You've got stuff that is passed on from a generation to generation, all left behind. And then actually for the longest of time, probably been seconds, but it feels like forever, all I could think about is, are they there? Where are they? Are their bodies there? Are they dead? Did they make it out of this village alive? Did we watch them be slaughtered and didn't do anything? Like, did we miss? What did we miss? What had happened? Because you don't just up and go like that, You don't leave your treasured possessions behind. That's everything you've got, So anyway, that was way harder to deal with. Also, what was way harder to deal with was the realization that us trained military personnel were sitting there. The place itself was still under attack, as in the town that we were held in. And, you have the imminent threat and you have another imminent threat from a different source at the same time. The imminent threat was gun pointed at us. We were kind of squished in one corner, unsure about what's going to happen next. But also the area was under heavy shelling at the same time. And you're like, which way am I going to get squashed from? Where will this go? But we were set next to a window on the bottom floor. The window was barred. Obviously, the family themselves were trying to probably protect themselves from intrusion before they abandoned the area. But the building was being bombarded. Not the building itself, the village, the town. And the three of us were the only ones that were like ducking our heads in and reacting to every one of these hits, whereas everyone else was just sitting there as if they were listening to Sunday opera. It was just weird, So you can imagine how their bodies, their whole beings, their brains were soaked in this stuff so frequently that it was no longer...
It's become normal.
It's normal, yeah.
And are they quite kind to you? Like, do they give you any water or anything, or is it guns at you the entire time?
We had both. We had guns at us at the same time, the whole time, but we were also treated with kindness relatively early on because we were able to strike a conversation. Yeah.
What does kindness look like in that environment?
Kindness looks like being allowed to use the bathroom, for example, or being given a glass of water. I mean, it doesn't seem like much, but it is a lot, you know.
It's a human connection, I guess.
It's a human connection, yeah. It means you are allowed to be someone of dignity, which, you know, means the world. Kindness also look like, I should not come across as being ungrateful in saying it, but also being offered cigarettes. And they were disgusting cigarettes because clearly they had some embargoes and they couldn't bring any good stuff, but it was just the worst thing in the world. And it's one of those things like if you can earn graces, so that's how the training goes. If you earn graces early, it's an indication that you have some hope. Like if you were, treated bluntly, if you were asked for something like that, then you're screwed and you have to kind of work a little harder to earn good graces.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Were you a smoker?
Not so much at the time, but that,
they must have spotted you straight. Did you start like coughing? They would have been like, oh, she's not even a smoker.
No, you try not to be. You handle it like a pro.
So the whole time, are you? I mean, in the moments of downtime, like, are you thinking of your parents, or are you thinking of Jamie, or are you just like trying to figure out who's who and what their role is?
Well, that was the most important part, is actually here is the thing I really appreciate about our team. Every one of us clearly was aware that what was offered or what was suggested was a possibility, but the primary interest we had was really understanding our terrain. And this is going to sound weird, but if you've studied, I don't know, volcanoes or some sort of old piece of history, and suddenly you walk right into it. We had studied this environment, this pattern of operation for a very, very long time. And it was the first opportunity we had to look at it face to face, to be the observed in the positions that we had observed before. So gathering insights was the biggest and most important thing. Like, you entertain yourself with stuff like, which is part of training too. Where does the impact come from? Who moves where? Who's the boss of who? What pattern of engagement do they have? What escalation emerges based on different trigger points? What weapons do they hold? How do they hold them? What level of readiness do they have? There were moments, for example, where we had a couple of what looked like 13, 14-year-olds as our guard, young kids. And I was deeply concerned because they clearly didn't know how to hold their weapons. And I had this distinct fear that they will shoot themselves in the foot, will be blamed for it, and, it would be horrible for all parties involved. But then you also had others who were clearly quite experienced and knew precisely what they were doing. And just that juxtaposition alone can tell you a lot about what a team is made of, So it's just, you kind of try to build a cohesive picture of what it is that you're dealing with. Largely for entertainment, if you think that it's not...
For entertainment? You and I have got very different views of...
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You can't just say, I'm just going to take a little nap here, thanks, Yeah.
Were you at peace with death that day?
I didn't contemplate that I had to be.
Right.
I think you kind of have to. I don't think you can really be at peace with death at any point, can you? I think you can imagine that you might be, but it can change that level of peace with death based on what is happening around you, what's happening in your day. Who's in front of you in that moment. I suspect. I think I was at peace with it intellectually before I stepped into this deployment, and any other deployment you have to consider it, but I wasn't making it be it's the wrong time to be having this discussion with yourself. You can't show up and not expect that this is a possible outcome.
Yeah. Did the time go fast or slow?
Both. Both. Can you believe it? Both. Like, it's just weird. There are times where it feels extremely fast, to the point where there are details I only remember when I read our intelligence briefs. And I can't imagine how we've packed that much in. But then there are times where it felt like moments took forever. And those are the moments of uncertainty. And you don't know what lever to pull. And if you do it, whether it's going to lead to worse or better consequences. And that's the nasty chess game, when you have this huge suspense. I think it's a cluster.
Well, that's someone else's decision, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I suppose you can just strategically do the best you can at every step of the way. How long was it in total? It was like 7 hours.
Yeah, overnight. It's a sleepover.
So that's a long time.
That's a long time. It could have been much longer. It could have been forever time.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest win we had, is that it wasn't longer.
When did it become clear that, or was there a moment where you thought you're safe? Where you're gonna get out of this?
Do you know what's really, really horrible about, I think maybe the nastiest part of the situation is actually appreciating that you aren't safe until there isn't a threat present in front of you. And so we negotiated our release, we thought, and then we started moving back to where we started, but we were escorted by the group the whole way through. And the condition of our release is that we had secured audience with the UN general that was head of mission at the time. He was a grumpy individual, a two-star general who probably couldn't be bothered being there, like summoned up early in the morning for a coffee with a bunch of rebels. But so they were stationed there. At one point, as we were walking up the hill we came down on the night before, we could see a whole heap of UN vehicles. Everyone was there waiting to, scoop us back up. But because the guard group was moving with us and began to peel off gradually, this could have meant both, safety is imminent, but it could have also meant staging for much worse. And there was a point right at the end, and I remember just going, I actually said it out loud. There's a number of things I say out loud, right? Sleep deprivation. Miko was laughing his head off at me because apparently I said, that's enough now. That's enough, to myself, like a bro, And what I meant by that, I think in my head, I was actually talking about seeking extreme challenges, that I genuinely meant it. I remember saying it, and I was thinking to myself, I've done enough now. I've ticked that box. I'm good now to become a retired old lady. But we got, just before we got into our observation post, the last man, who was the leader of the group, pulled out a camera and said, I'm just going to ask you a few questions on camera, not in those exact words. And I thought, I can't believe we went through all this and it deceived us into thinking that we were walking back to safety. Because what I imagined there for a second was, that's it. They're going to do that final act in front of all eyes. Mm-hmm. All eyes are on us right now. They've got the camera and they're going to chop our heads off in front of the UN. They've summoned the highest possible authority. This was the group that they had the biggest disgruntlement with. So, but of course it didn't happen. Now you can roll with that moment of fear. And it was a surge. It was a sudden surge because it was probable if they meant to do what they intended to do at the beginning. But no, they were actually, they stuck to their word.
And once you're finally safe, what happens first? Are you laughing? Are you crying? Are you shaking? when the ordeal is finally over.
It took us a long time to actually have any reaction because we were bracing for the initial stage. In typical fashion, what kind of rightfully happens is that you get sent off. We got sent off to the medical center. We got examined, we were queried, all sorts of people were asking us questions to better understand the terrain. And then it was not until that night that we could sit back. We requested to be back in our observation post and make peace with what had happened. We actually cleaned our observation post ourselves. The difference was that we weren't there by ourselves. We now had security guards all over us, UN security guards, because we thought it's really important to close the loop, as you would with any critical incident. Just don't let the mind wander, understand it, complete the picture, and then move on. But then we all had this extreme level of energy, which was utterly weird because we hadn't slept for like several days by that stage. And we were still buzzing and sharing ideas and laughing our heads off. And so laughing was the thing. That was basically it. We were making fun of one another and ridiculing each other on our ridiculous reactions. But they're actually genuinely funny. We weren't being strange individuals. We genuinely had a whole heap of funny reactions, which is,
It's interesting, isn't it? You never know how you're going to react.
Yeah.
Unless you're in that situation, which thankfully most of us will never find ourselves in. When do you tell your parents?
I think they had been informed that we were taken, which is, I don't know if it's a good idea, right? So they already knew that we had been taken. Sorry, I shouldn't be commenting on who announces what when, but they already knew that we were safe. So I didn't speak to my parents up until much later that night because there were more important things to do. They knew that we were, we had a bit of an adventure. We were returned back. And the most important thing is kind of try to minimize so that they don't worry about things that, are past or could have happened but didn't happen. You know how people do that?
Hypotheticals.
Hypotheticals. And then they kind of try to infuse the situation with their own fears and worries. And so, it was important to not do that until the picture is clear and shared.
So if anything, you downplay to protect other people.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just jump on? Why did you stay? Why didn't you jump on the next plane home?
Because there's a really important job to be done. You have a privilege of intimate observation, of intimate understanding of a context. It's just this is a known threat in the area. You still are moving about like an absolute princess, in my case, in the UN armored vehicle when everyone else really needs attention. And the stories that you observe needed to be reported. The second layer to that is that as the threat was increasing in the area, a number of nationalities that previously were part of our contingent were being withdrawn by their own countries. And we begged and pleaded with New Zealand Defence Force to keep us because it mattered to us. Like, this is important. When you seize observation on areas like this, there are moments of history that perish. You quickly realize that you can't make fundamental change in people's lives, not in this current generation at least, maybe one or two, maybe a handful a day. But pieces of history wasted in that way because no one objectively observes and reports on them is one of the biggest atrocities because it perpetuates a narrative for life that neglects an entire population, an entire segment of the world. So that it didn't even cross my mind that you should be doing that.
Again, this is just do you need to pause for a drink, or are you okay?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
You can't still be going on that miniature coffee.
I am. I am. Watch me. I'm savouring it. It's like a Toblerone piece, right? You spend like 3 hours licking it.
Do another one. I can get the gang to bring in another one if you want.
That's
okay. I mean, it's a hypothetical, but you weren't a mum then. You became a mum shortly after. If you were in that situation as a mum, would you have reacted any differently? I mean, everything worked out. It seems like textbook. Everything worked out fine, but would it have been different for you being there had you been a mum?
I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
When I was there, I was a wife, and Jamie was on the other side of the fence. He was in Israel. I did actually, one of the worries that I did have, and it sounds funny, but we do have obviously our relationship is amazing and has a lot of humor infused in it. But I genuinely did worry, rightfully, whether he's going to judge my performance to be. and funny enough, I have it on, the authority of my local commander, that when Jamie was informed that we were held hostage and then released, because by the time when they informed him, we'd already talked our way out of it in the middle of the night. He said, "Did she follow drill?" That was the first thing he said. And the guy who is from Slovenia, the colonel who's from Slovenian colonel, loved the man. He was actually visiting New Zealand in our house. He stayed with us several months ago. He couldn't understand the drill Jamie was talking about. He was like, "What kind of man is that?" They didn't. Jamie was there on leave. No one really knew what his background was. But so I was obsessing over that. I don't know as a mum. Yeah, I don't know. You never know, I don't think.
Yeah. I suspect as a mum, maybe you wouldn't even put yourself in that situation where that could happen. But who knows? Did you have any PTSD or nightmares after that?
I don't think so. I did have memories of experiences of my colleagues. I don't know. As a psychologist, I can confidently say so far I haven't had any symptomatology to suggest trauma. But because we ended up with such an epic outcome, and then several months later, a professor at Waikato University that I started my PhD with asked, was it curiosity that helped you? It became an intellectual thing. So I actually had an epic vehicle to unpack the whole experience, study it, discover that there are gazillions of people who deal with much worse, and here is how they manage it. And we so happened to accidentally stumble upon the same principles. I'm not saying the experience was exciting, but reflecting on it was, because you're like, poof, I can't believe our brains are wired so well that if we get out of their ways, they help you solve stuff. So that to me became like epic. High five. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Like if you're a geek and you get, like, there's nothing better. I love my data. I love my science. I love the field I practice in. Every field of psychology spins my world. But then to be privileged enough to be thrown in the mix, like in the muddy stuff of life, and go, oh, this theory proves itself. like that's the best. So.
I mean, you're so intriguing. It'd be great if we could bottle up what you've got and share it with people. I've got friends that have had their houses burgled before, and there's been occasions where they've been in it, but most of the occasions they've been at work or whatever, and they find the invasion of their personal space so much that they have to sell the house and move out.
Sure.
So I'm just intrigued as to how a human being can go through this and experience it, and just it's sort of like water off a duck's back for you in a way.
Well, no, it's better than that. It's grow from it. It's learn from it, gift from it. Like and I'm not saying that this is necessarily like a daily purpose of life kind of thing that I adhere to. Like, it's not. But in this instance, you have a choice of kind of brushing it off. You have a choice of potentially being impacted by not solving for some of the open spaces or dilemmas or fears that have emerged and you haven't attended to effectively. And there's an even better choice than all of those, which is just go nuts on understanding it. See if this can in some way be useful. Like being in the position that we were in, automatically you are in the state where every experience you have is supposed to serve the rest of the team for their betterment. You don't, like it was our job to collect data and information to protect the rest of our team the whole way through. So you're conditioned in this, like, let me study this thing. How can I pick this up and share it? In fact, when we came out of this experience, I got given the blessing from the UN to do an all-mission development of resilience capabilities. So we started this thing called the UNMO Resilience Project, and we got shipped across for a quick study to the Netherlands to share our experiences. And then I had this epic dude called Dr. Hani Murad, who was assigned to the mission, and I got to study every one of our military observers, record their stories so that they can share with others what it is that it feels like to be in the face of acute. We never had that before.
Yeah.
I mean, so like it's a whole lot better than just doing this, right? You can go, okay, an opportunity that showed us a thing or two we didn't know before. Let's go crazy on seeing what it could look like, how it can serve us all. And it's amazing. We had so many parties around that data gathering thing. It's good to be a geek, I just don't see what else you'd do. Why would you miss the opportunity?
Well, it's inspiring stuff. It's like what we talked about before with your book, The Resilience Toolkit. It's like you are a living example of like bouncing forward, as you talk about in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you reflect on the rebels that were involved with this now? How do you reflect on them? Is it like indifference, disdain? Is there a level of compassion?
I have no indifference or disdain because, and again, it's. You cannot be in this environment and be ignorant to the human pressures and drivers. Like there's no universe in which I could feel anything other than understanding. As much as I don't appreciate the vehicle they wanted to choose to do what they tried to do, the pressures they were under and the severity of experiences they have had under the watchful eye of every international community is incomprehensible. I don't understand how we can expect people to conduct themselves in acute pain with a level of self-control that is disproportionate to the discomfort. So I can't hold judgment. I can hold curiosity and I can hold compassion and I can hold a lifelong desire to want to somehow support the human that sits inside the story. Not so much the ways in which they choose to communicate disdain or dislike of conditions, but certainly the human. It humbles you like nobody's business, that stuff.
How often do you think about it now? Is it just when you're forced to talk about it, like in podcasts or keynote speeches, or like when you had a big drive in to the studio this morning? Like, do you ever just have flashes or moments where you're thinking about it?
No, but I do think of the region often because we sponsor a school for girls in the region. And that has helped us actually unlock much of our capabilities beyond that and actually start contributing. You know how we all have all these ideas about how we can make the world a better place. Meanwhile, we miss the boat completely because there's like thousands of little offers you get given every day, but you miss them. So it's front of mind for me because we have this epic women that we support in the area. But not in the way that situation is just an opening. It's an opening to worldview that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
And you got a couple of awards. A very awarded family. Jamie, your husband. What's he got? He's got the one just below the Victoria Cross, right?
Yeah.
What's the one that he's got?
I knew you were going to ask me. I have no idea. No. It's huge. It's huge. What is it? We should really think about it. It's the one below Victoria Cross.
Okay. Well, after this, we're going to have to Google, do foxes bark?
And then what does Jamie has as a medal?
But you got the New Zealand Defence Force, what is that? Meritorious Service Medal and the United Nations Compendium?
Commendation. Yeah.
What do they mean?
So the Meritorious Service Medal was the inaugural New Zealand Defence Force Service Medal. It hadn't been issued out to people for 20, 30 years or something like that. So they unlocked it. And I always laugh. So you should probably, you'd know that this is a healthy coping response and also a normal part of our fabric, humour and humility, right? But both of these... So the UN commendation was given to me for negotiating critical incidences in the Middle East or in the region that we were posted in, because that one was the one that was most visible. There were many others prior and after that, but that was the commendation for good conduct in extreme situations and leadership. But the Meritorious Service Medal was people were interviewed from the mission area before. Behind my back, unbeknown to me. And my team was saying that they're about to give me a really important medal, and it's the medal for talking too much. I believe it. Because they basically said that I just wouldn't shut up. And I constantly was asking, but why? And what is your actual motivation behind that? And in what way could we make it? And so the rebels apparently were bored out of their brains.
Let it go.
Shut up.
Were you really?
Oh, yeah.
You were talking the whole way through it.
It was genuinely interested. Well, I don't think it felt disproportionate to my general level of curiosity, but yeah.
What do you think you were doing? Were you trying to charm them? Were you trying to win them over so they liked you, or what was it?
No, I genuinely wanted to understand. Because here is the reality we all knew is that if they did what they said they'll do, they'll all get blasted out of life. They'll all get obliterated, right? And so they were giving an ample opportunity for retaliation that everyone would suffer. There'd be the reason why they'd violate the peace agreement between Israel and Syria. Israel already knew where we were because they had an observation post placed 2 kilometers away from where we were, observing the peace on Israel and Syria because we weren't trusted. So our entire ordeal, the reason why we know there were 38 of them, is because Israel was filming that, but they couldn't communicate with us. It was just weird. So if they did what they said they'd do, they'd cause immense pain to not just themselves, but everyone they pretend or purport to have supported. So I genuinely wanted to understand what are they trying to achieve. And there's an early piece inside of it, which is coming to a point where we wanted to acknowledge, not for any other reason, but because we felt it for so long, that the situation that triggered these patterns of behavior in them, the endless human suffering, it was something we ourselves didn't tolerate. The word impotent was used, and we were like, we agree. Because we felt it. We felt the burden of it. You can't hide that stuff.
Yeah.
You know? By the way, Gallantry Star. No one should ever forget that. Oh, my Lord. New Zealand Gallantry Star, Jamie Pennell. Rock star from way back when. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you both are. You're a couple of rock stars. Where are they? Are they something you reflect on much, these accolades, or are they hidden in a drawer somewhere?
No. You have to accept them on behalf of others, right? But you don't just sit there around the dinner table and go, look at mine. What was your model? No, we don't do that. That'll be
they're
horrible.
not framed like my New Zealand Podcast Awards.
No. And I don't know where they are.
Really?
Well, should I? Okay, but do you have your podcast awards on the wall?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's appropriate. Do you want some medals?
No, I don't.
Sorry.
Thanks for sharing that in such great detail. Do you get an oversharing hangover, later on today after revisiting it in such vivid colour? Will the rest of the day feel like a drain for you or anything, or not really?
Occasionally, I just worry about this one situation being the thing. I know nobody really knows about the situation, but if I was to repeat it, it feels indulgent, to be honest, because I worry the only thing that I get a hangover is it's my story versus the opportunity for others to learn. And I'm not saying I have something to teach, but I get exposed to a whole heap of awesome insights and philosophies of life that are far more interesting than my hostage situation. But I appreciate that it's rare, unique, and that it has offered us great lessons. So,
well, I'm mainly curious about it from the aspect that if you can go through something like this and not bounce forward, then any one of us with our little situations in life can do the same. The human spirit's capable of much more than what we think we are.
Absolutely.
I've got a card here about the reality TV stuff, but it just seems so irrelevant now. But you have done a little bit of reality TV. There was a TV show called Tracked with Vinnie Jones in the South Island. Is that the one? A previous podcast guest, Simone Mayer. Was she on that one?
Yes.
Simone
she
Mayer.
was. I love
Coast
Simone.
to coast legend.
Yeah, she's legend in every way.
Yeah.
Not just coast to coast. I think she's an exceptional woman. Yeah.
There's another example. Yeah, if anyone hasn't listened to that podcast with Simone Mayer, it's well worth going back and digging it out. Yeah. She's a resilient woman.
My God.
She's been through so much.
Amazing.
And thrived.
Yeah.
And there was another TV show. Did you have much to do with Vinnie Jones on that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
What was he like?
He's the dude. He's got he's got an amazing sense of humour. It's unfortunate. I think it took him a hot second to get used to our queuiness, because we know how we don't particularly care for celebrity. Thankfully, as much as some other environments he might be accustomed to, but he was cruising along, I think, expecting us to be a bit kind of
like worship him. Yeah,
didn't happen for a hot second. So then he adapted, thankfully. He was the dude. He was awesome, and loved his sense of humor. Loved the way he projected his voice. Had to kind of caution him to be a bit quieter, because it's New Zealand. We don't shout around the streets in New Zealand too much. Anyway, people are people. Yeah, he's just as every other lad, just needing a pie and a beer and a bit of a chat, and then he's good. Yeah.
And there was another show, I think this was last year or the year before, SAS Celebrity, Who Dares Wins UK.
Yeah.
And while researching this podcast, I looked that up. Because they're UK celebrities, I didn't really recognise any names apart from Lani Daniels. Lani Daniels, the New Zealand boxer.
God, what a woman, and winning it all. And so she was, so the SAS TV show has been going for like 1,000 years. He's like one of the original legendary ones. I did it because I deeply believe that psychology belongs everywhere. So that was amazing. But Lani, amazing New Zealand, incredible goddess, was pulled in last minute by the production company here, showed up, smashed it, shot herself, like the level of integrity and the humility that she displayed the whole way through, particularly amongst this loud, obnoxious cacophony that the set was staged to be, and people were selected to be kind of, pressuring each other, consciously or otherwise. Exceptional woman. And took it the whole way to the end, like a pro. Mm. Oh, my God, so proud. I've not been in tears too many times.
Oh, did she win?
This was one of them. Yeah, she was one of the 2 girls that won.
Oh, shit.
We had 2 women that won the show. One of them was a woman that had just had a baby 6 weeks prior. How crazy is that? So we had nothing. This is not one of those woman versus man thing, but we did have top athletes, male and female, and a mum. And Lani won the show. So, yeah.
I haven't seen that particular series, but I've seen some of those series before, and I think I'd be out on day one. When they make you like jump backwards off the helicopter, I'd be like, oh no, I'm good.
You would though, for funsies. You wouldn't for funsies?
No. You and I have got very different ideas of fun. Is the one you were in the same sort of thing as the Australian one, where the contestants put bags over their head and they get marched into the staff area and
that's the one. Yeah.
How did you handle that sort of like the bullshit back end of reality TV, where you've been in this real military environment and then suddenly you're in this sort of manufactured environment?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of want to study it. That's the piece, right? That whole principle of never get stuck in your suit means you have to get out of your head a little bit and not be too precious. And my biggest worry about anything TV was, is it going to be some sort of cheesy nonsense, and how do I integrate it with my own personal integrity, But the truth is, these things serve a powerful purpose. They demonstrate to the world principles that most people don't get to witness. They see fellow humans, some of which they recognize, overcome complex challenges. It may look like bullshit when you know that there is a staged approach to this and it's a controlled environment, but it never fuels it on behalf of the participant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sucks. And all of these people get yanked out of the comfort, and the comfort is very prescribed and controlled by a whole heap of assistants normally, for some of them in particular, not all. So it's a hard yucca. You know, and you see it in their emotion. You know, it feels fake for a minute, and then it stops feeling fake because it's your life. You know, you're living it. So yeah, I had immense level of compassion for them.
Are you keen to look for more TV opportunities?
Not so much. I didn't really go looking for them, by the way. It just so happened that the first one we did, Tracked, we basically packaged ourselves as a team. We had 3 of our team members on the show as well, 4 in the end with me. And we decided that it's all in or all out. And it was a New Zealand production. So we really wanted to support that. And it was showcasing the skills of New Zealand trackers. The SAS UK thing felt a good challenge because they were coming to Mighty Aotearoa. And in the UK SAS, they have no psychologist. So it was the pain in the butt item. It was the unique spin-off. So yeah, I took real pleasure being an annoying element around the discussion table. So it was gold.
God, it's been a hell of a life, eh?
And it's only just begun.
Yeah. Can I ask how old you are?
I'm 45.
45.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you see the future bringing? Like the next 5 years, 15 years?
Not sure.
No.
Yeah. But it's going to be a life of challenge and service and excitement and exploration. Yeah. I think the job to be done is to really continue to focus on human potential and keep on building capabilities in that space for anyone that needs them. Yeah.
How's your mental health been through your life with everything that you've gone through and everything you've experienced?
The only thing I perhaps suffer is excessive amount of energy and enthusiasm for life. So if there's something that has happened, I may have missed it because there's too many exciting things on the outside. But you know, I mean, it's if you pay attention and live life well, it's not always skipping through daisy fields with butterflies. It's but you just have to know. You have to mind where your mind goes. You have to know when to stop and when to replenish. So
yeah, of everything you've achieved, what makes you the proudest?
My son. And my husband make me the proudest. Yeah, they're amazing humans. And I don't think I've achieved that. I've not achieved them, if that makes sense. But having these awesome characters in my life and actually having a ridiculously stable and enormously rich pool of amazing friends. I have no idea why they keep me, but I've got an incredible group of friends, and I'm the most unpredictable satellite dish ever. Like I pop in and out of their lives all the time. So I'm insanely proud of that.
Why do you say self-deprecating things like that? Is that your Kiwi side or is that the Bulgarian side? Saying things like I have no idea why they keep me.
I mean, normally if you have amazing people and friends, they kind of want you to consistently display commitment and availability. And I'd like to. It's in my mind, but I'm physically unable to do it because I've just been all over the show.
You're busy. It's a chapter of your life right now.
Yeah.
What would you say your best and worst habits are?
Probably the same thing. The habit of thinking there's more in my tank is the best thing and my worst thing. I don't. Wow. Do you know what I mean?
It's funny. You know Sir Steve Hansen.
Yes.
The former. I had him on the podcast, and he's got a theory that someone's greatest strength is usually their greatest weakness as well.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, which is exactly what you just said.
Well, yeah, okay. I feel validated then because...
don't feel he's a rugby coach. He's not a psychologist.
Well, I mean, we could swap jobs.
You probably just validated him, if anything.
Yeah, yeah.
When was the last time you cried?
Let me think. I mean, I love a good cry. I sometimes... when is it? I don't... See, this is the thing. I don't watch too much TV. Typically, it will be that kind of situation, But it'll be cry of compassion or sometimes fury, especially as I observe. So my thing is anything that squashes human potential or reduces the ability of an individual to live life to the fullness of the capabilities. And if I can't do anything about it, it infuriates me and it makes me sad. So that's my thing. That's my trigger. If I see anything that suppresses or reduces to be fair, animals, humans, anything that causes undue pain. Is my trigger. And then I get
compassion.
Compassion. Yeah.
What are you most afraid of?
Life of meaningless meandering. That's what I'm most afraid of. You know what I mean? Because there's quite a lot of good stuff to be done And not just to be done. I'm not saying that I'm in some way useful in trying to do stuff, but to be done, to be witnessed, to be experienced. That's my worst fear, is being lost in white noise.
Well, you're certainly not getting lost in the white noise, are you? You're getting shit done.
Oh, you better be right about that. I might be wrong. Otherwise, I'll be miserable.
Do you have any regrets?
Not yet. Not yet. Yeah.
Touch wood.
Touch wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And say Jamie and Alex were in the next room.
Yeah.
What 3 words would you like them to say behind your back?
She rocks. Can it be 2?
You're gonna have to, why use 3 when you only need 2?
Yeah.
And are you proud of yourself?
No.
Come on.
Why? I don't mean it in a humble way. I mean, I genuinely have always felt like I've only just begun. I mean, what is the right thing to do? I feel content with myself. I really love myself. I love that I get excited about spending time in my company, which is a great sign, I reckon. Because I'm
in your own company.
In my own company, yeah. I'm a massive extrovert, but I really love my thoughts as well. So to this morning when I was delayed with the traveling the canoes, I just realized, this is probably why I wasn't losing my mind being late, that I quite like my thoughts. And I was like, oh, how cool is that? Like, nice.
Listening to music or just in silence?
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of drum and bass involved. That was matching my frustration.
You mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast, you talked about Jamie in the early days of your courtship, about him you're doing a motorcycle trip around Afghanistan and bringing you some stones. So he's obviously like has the sort of loner gene as well.
Yes, he does.
How do you navigate that as a couple?
From a distance.
Oh, yeah. Is that the key to a successful marriage? Just avoiding?
No. You know how you kind of go, I can't believe it took us so long, but you know how sometimes you're like, you think you're going to have to be always together and have every dinner together and go to sleep together at 9:30. We've got completely different circadian cycles and preferences for life. I get mega excited in the evening. I love to do my research at night. I read some of the best articles, research articles at night. Jamie likes to conk out at 9:30 like a little old lady, and it's okay. And it took us ages to go, why don't we, who said that we have to be like holding hands and be all bobbing together through life?
Yeah.
But it's the best. We give each other incredible level of support. We have profound level of trust. Jamie has incredible passion for skydiving. That's his space to be. My stuff is travel. I dread the thought of being stopped or worrying about doing some of the work I do because my husband might want me home. And that's not a common thing, but everyone should afford each other, if you have the privilege of love and partnership, to see the other person as someone who supports you in chasing your madness. I think it's the greatest thing. So we give each other space, and that makes us want one another even more.
When situations arrive, as they do in all relationships, are you good at facing them front on, or do you tend to I'll deal with that another day?
Oh, it just depends. I mean, wouldn't it be great if we followed the book? No, we smash the book. We smash the book, we tear every page apart, and then we stick it back together. We're like, that mattered. Let's try it again.
Yeah.
We're horrendously rebellious when it comes to the recommendations. Jamie rejects the stuff I offer, and then he finds it in some sort of, podcast. He listens, and he's like, oh, that thing you said. 5 years later, and he may or may not give me credit, and that's the thing that kills me, and then I have to get over my ego, and then we talk about it, and come on.
Is that right? He tries to shit on your research, does he?
He doesn't even hear it. He's like, as if you'd know. I'm like, yes, I do. 25 years, there's a lot of degrees behind that thing,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hey, this has been so great. I'm so pleased we connected to make this podcast happen. This is one that's going to stick with me for a long time, and I'm sure it's going to stick with anyone that listens to it or watches it for a long time as well. You're so inspiring.
Stop it.
You're not good
So
at
are you. No, I think, thank you so much. That genuinely means the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much
time.
for being a guest on my podcast. And I hope we remain friends after this.
Yes, please. Loved it. Thank you. Thank you.